I'll cut there.
We are ready to start the planning board meeting for Thursday, February 12th. We have a agenda. 6:30 is for board business. We have minutes of prior meetings, January 8th and January 29th. Does anyone have any comments about them? No. May I hear a motion to accept them?
Motion to accept the minutes of January 8th and January 29th of 2026.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have the planning board annual town report. Have any of you had a chance to look it over?
I have.
I did not get a chance to pre-read that.
Because we're asked to vote on accepting.
Can't hear you.
Okay, we're asked to vote on accepting the 2025 planning board report, annual report. Is this a time sensitive thing? Can we do it? It is.
Yep.
Okay.
So if you have any recommended changes or updates, please let me know tomorrow morning so I can get it on time.
Okay, so should we vote conditional to, or is the vote necessary?
Not necessary.
Okay, then we'll just skip that. I have looked through it and I think it's excellent. The next item is we have lost a member of our board. Anna Houston has resigned. I want to take a few moments to talk about Anna's service to the town. A lot of people serve the town, and then when the election comes, no one hears anything about their service. But Anna was on the planning board since 2018 for 8 years. During a couple of, at least 1 year when I first came on, she was the chair. She was on the Affordable Housing Trust. And was also chair of that for, I think, at least a year. She was briefly on the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, and she was on the Master Plan Steering Committee back when we were doing our latest iteration of the Master Plan. From my experience with working with her, she was a fierce advocate for affordable housing and the creation of housing. And some of the, one of the things we're talking about today will be a significant housing project, and I hope she feels gratified. That being said, we're looking for there's a two-step process. There'll be, if possible, an appointment by the Board of Selectmen for the remainder of this planning board term until the election. Right now, so I'm putting it out there for anyone interested to put their name forward to the Board of Selectmen. Right now, that probably will occur at their March 9th meeting, assume we get people interested. At the time, then there will be, at the time of the election, there will be, I'm inviting people to run for the remainder of her term, which is 2 years. And that's a lot more attractive than the 5-year term that most of us run for, which is frequently cited as a reason not to run for the planning board. And so in this case, I'd invite people to, if they ever had an interest, to think about it. This year, the incumbent Bartlett Harvey will be running for his, the further 5-year term, but we would need to fill Anna's remainder of the 2 years. So for anyone here in the room, anyone here watching, please, number one, as soon as you can, get your name into the selectman's office, and number two, think about running.
And to do that, contact the town clerk's office.
Yeah, town clerk, at the moment, the town hall is not open because of a fire alarm issue, but I assume that it's gonna be open.
Right, email and phone
Well, okay,
still works.
okay.
Yeah.
Next item, public input. We had a comment about our public input. This item here, which says public input will last for no more than 10 minutes and speakers are allowed to speak for no longer than 2 minutes. This refers to just general planning board issues. It does not refer to public input during the hearing process. I want to make that clear. We have these hearings for people to come and speak. That being said, if someone goes on and on, they'll be asked to, moderate their comments. And we often, on issues where there's a lot of comment, we like to hear people who have new items to bring up. Anyway, it's now past the time of 6:35, which is agenda for an A&R on 146 Tahadawan Road. Do we have the proponent want to speak?
Sure.
Yep.
Good evening. I'm Mark Gallagher from Seal Harbor Development, and we have 146 Tahadawan on under agreement. We're proposing tonight to create an A&R, provide you an A&R plan that creates 4 lots. There's an existing house on the property. I don't know if you're familiar with 146. It's adjacent to the western side of the lake. And it runs adjacent to that. The property includes a significant amount of resource area that extends from what would be the northerly side to the southerly side of the lake. It used to be a Christmas tree farm at one point in time. It was under forestry. There's some beautiful trees in there. And then there's about 5 acres of forested property. I think it was some point in time, according to the folks that owned the home, they farmed it. They had orchard out there and a bunch of other uses and resources. There's an existing home that was built in the early 50s, a 3-car garage that was added on, I think, that they used for when they ran it as a Christmas tree farm. And there's a barn on the property as well. So we're using a combination. We have a lot of frontage. So we're using a combination of lots. There are a standard 1-acre lot. There is also pork chop lots. It's on an existing public way. The lots all meet current zoning for frontage and also for area. And we put the required 150-foot boxes on the lots that are pork chop lots. So this is our first step in developing the property. There's no impediments to getting into the property. There's no guardrail. It's fairly flat. There are multiple entrances onto the property, and we would ask you to endorse the plan this evening. Be happy to answer any questions.
Jeff, could I just?
Yes.
So, just for understanding, A&R is approval not required. All we're approving is that it's not a subdivision. So we're not granting building permits. We're not granting any waivers on any building requirements and stuff. It's purely here to state that this is not a subdivision.
Correct. So approval not required is an administrative process. You have to meet 3. Yeah, you have to meet 3 criteria. I've covered all 3 of the threshold criteria this evening. It sets on a public way. There's no impediments. We've completed all the testing on the property. The testing is shown on there. We meet all the zoning requirements. It's an administrative matter strictly.
Can you talk about parcel A?
Which one is parcel A?
It's the wetland.
Okay, sure. What would you like to know about it, Jeff?
Because the way it was presented was that there's essentially 4 lots, and then the next page is parcel A. So I just,
Right, so parcel A is the resource area. It's a large wetland. Historically, my best guess is the lake had extended a lot further down than it does today. It looks that way. They say that it has a quote-unquote river running through it at some point that goes underneath Tehadawon and empties out towards the Brown property. Overall, I think our next step after this is looking at how it makes the most amount of sense to get that portion of the property into either the Conservation Trust's hands, the conservation, some type of conservatory. We've been approached immediately by the Conservation Trust and by others that would like to get an easement or own a portion of the property on the upland so that they can bring a trail all the way around the lake. We've engaged them. We don't have any issues with, working towards that goal. But this A&R really just creates value so that we can meet our requirements to close on the property in March, and then move on to a different type of development plan that would enhance the property. But I foresee that parcel A would not stay as part of the development. It would be provided to through some vehicle for conservatory.
okay. I do want to acknowledge that we had a letter from a butter on the lake side of the property. And I think the approval not required process is not a building project.
No.
It's literally lines drawn on a map. And that being said, they have concerns, and that would be addressed at the time of any permits under review or any proposals under review for a project.
When you say the lakeside?
Well, I don't know. if it's
Opposite side of the lake?
It's no. It's like the whole length of, parallel to Haddaway Road on the other.
Oh, Steve.
Yeah.
So we've already met with Steve.
Okay.
We've reached out, and we actually reached out, and we had a meeting last Friday in our office.
Good.
And we've had conversation,
Okay.
and we will continue to have conversation.
Okay. Or any comments?
No.
I have one question. You're the applicant. The applicant is Seal Harbor.
That's right.
Do you have a letter to us that you have the right to?
So the owners of the property passed, and the Marin had asked us for this, so we had them sign the application. So the application is signed by the applicant, and it's already signed by the landowner as well. We're owner by agreement, but Marin did ask, and we went back and got them to sign off.
Any comments from the audience? Yes.
Where is it in relation to the Brown property?
Kind of across the street, where they.
If they're heading towards Bud Glavies, it's on the left?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
I grew up in this neighborhood and I can't make heads or tails of the property.
So you know where the lake is?
Of course,
So when you cross the lake, or you cross the bridge that kind of comes across where the lake is on your left-hand side, it's the next property on your left. It goes all the way up the hill, almost about 4 houses away from Bud Glavies.
it's not visible from the street.
It is, it has a significant amount. So the property starts before you go over the causeway, where the lake is. So the land starts before that.
The end of Long Lake and Brown Pond, you pass that.
Correct.
Right after that, it's on the left.
It's actually before you
Okay.
cross, and it wraps all the way up.
Is it next to Sherry Gould's house?
No.
Okay,
No.
I know where it is now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
It's kind
I
of
would
hidden.
add, we always cut our trees at that property. They had gorgeous trees.
It is absolutely. We hope that they'll take
No
one down
longer
to
do that,
town.
it was disappointing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful property.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve?
This gentleman right here would like to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
No, I've dealt with a previous owner back when I was leading the Conservation Trust. I'm very glad to hear that you're working with them. And for a long time, they've looked at the area for the resource area.
Correct.
So that's very positive, and I know they look forward to working with you.
We're trying. I think there's one, not with us, there's not an impediment, but there's an impediment with the lot behind us that we're trying to, that's why when we engage, we're trying to maybe do a possible land swap so that there will be a contiguous path around the lake. So we're trying. I mean, you know,
And-
everybody has requests.
And if I can help out, that's fine. You used to be on the board,
Sure.
and you had several other projects. So this is useful resource land.
Absolutely. Yeah.
People
I agree.
look forward to it.
Yeah, no, we would like to, yeah, there's no reason not to give the resource away. Absolutely.
Just wanted to make it note that we did get a letter from another neighbor
Okay.
just late this evening with questions for the board. None of them deal with anything under your authority in a A&R though.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the A&R for 146 to R1.
Second.
All in favor? Mark? Barbara? Daryl? And I'm at.
Thank you. See you on the 12th.
So, Mark, since town hall is closed,
I'm sorry?
since town hall is closed,
sign
we'll
it.
wait till-
Oh, you can sign it. No, you sign it.
No, you can't take that.
No, it's available, yeah. You know?
We can't.
Okay, I'll just get up.
Oh, we have. So.
Two.
Oh, no, you got a lot of room. Yeah.
Put the date on. Okay. Let's, here, come down to that.
Oh, you gotta get up and sign.
You want to see.
Okay, it's, the next item, agenda for 6:40, which we're past that time. Public hearings, King Street Common to amend the definitive subdivision, stormwater review and site plan. Phase 1 residential development. This is actually, we're opening the public hearing. You want to read the? Yeah.
Consolidated public hearing, stormwater management permit, site plan, 550 King Street, JLB King Street Residences. Littleton Planning Board will hold a consolidated public hearing on Thursday, February 12, 2026 at 6:40 p.m. in multipurpose room 1 in the center on Shattuck Street at 33 Shattuck Street to consider A, stormwater management permit application under Chapter 38 of the Code of Littleton, B, site plan review under Littleton zoning bylaws, Section 173, Article 31, property owner 550 King Street, assessors map U810-1 through U810-5, owner 550 King Street LLC and 550 King Street parcel P3 LLC. Applicant JLB Realty LLC and property owner. The applicant is proposing a 318-unit for-rent multifamily development project for the first residential phase of the King Street Common development. Applications and plans can be viewed online in the planning board page of the town website, the planning board and town clerk's office during their business hours. And ways to contact planning board office, telephone and email, and inviting people to provide comments.
That being said, I'm gonna turn it over to Morgan Pearson from the Lipoli Companies.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Again, I'm Morgan Pearson with Lipoli Companies, the proponent for this project. As Maren outlined very well, we're here tonight for two separate applications. The first being the Phase 1 residential, and then I believe followed by our follow-up meeting on our Phase 1 retail project. Again, want to thank the board for this special meeting. Really appreciate you all continuing to make time for this large project and holding these special hearings. As I tend to do, I also want to acknowledge some of the team members that are here. As in the past, we've invited the entire squad. We have our design team, both landscape and architecture. We have our construction team here. We have our civil engineers. Mary Lipoli is here as well from the family, and also very much involved in this project. So again, we're excited to share with you this residential project. One reason we're excited, of course, is that we believe and hope it is somewhat less complicated than the retail project, primarily because it does not fall within the form-based code, as the board, I'm sure, is aware, but also because the housing is just so critical to not only Littleton, but to Massachusetts, and I would actually go as far as saying the country itself. And this is this is a large project, but I think in a very good way and in a thoughtful way, bringing much needed housing to this area, which we'll go into to speak to as we present. Before I hand it off, I do also want to acknowledge Mark Seck, who you'll be hearing from. Mark is with JLB Partners. We have brought Mark and his team on as a multifamily specialist. They are the best, if not one of the best in the business when it comes to designing, building, and actually constructing multifamily housing across the country. And Mark can give you a little bit of background on himself, who's very much a Massachusetts resident and has done a ton of projects in this region. The last thing I'll say is that just reiterate something we've said in the past, which is our intent remains to come before this board in the next few months regarding 410 Great Road as it pertains to the affordable housing piece, where we are proposing a substantial number of units to what I would say is fast track the delivery of affordable housing, inclusionary zoning housing as part of this greater project. And that remains to be the case, and we'll touch on that a little bit in this following presentation. With that, I'll hand it over to Mark, and happy to answer additional questions. Then I'll be back again for the second round for retail. Mark.
Mark Seck on behalf of the co-applicant JLB Realty LLC. Good evening, Chair, members of the board. We're appreciative of the opportunity to be here. We're very, also I want to say we're grateful that the Lipoli Companies has chosen us to come in and partner with them on this transformational project. As Morgan said, we are a multifamily specialist. We specialize in Class A multifamily housing across the country, and we are very active here in Massachusetts. We only do multifamily housing. We don't do condos. We don't do office. We don't do retail. We focus on one thing and one thing well, and that's multifamily housing. I'm joined here by my team, in addition to Lipoli, who we are partnering with. Womack Hampton is the architect, and he's going to come up and give a presentation. Hancock Associates is the civil engineer on this project. Copley Wolf is the landscape architect, and our traffic consultant is TEC. So quick overview on JLB. We've been around since 2007, and since then we've built over 24,000 units across the country that exceed over $5 billion in gross value. We have a national platform across 6 offices covering 9 states. We approach it with the boots on the ground approach with senior professionals in each market. I have been developing here in Massachusetts for the last 15 plus years. I grew up in Walpole. I still live here. And so all of my team is Massachusetts based. We're headquarters here in Newton. I think it's important that we also are not only the developer, but we are the general contractor and the asset manager. So we see the project the entire way through. So I think we're all familiar with kind of the approved master plan. So just outlining here where we are proposing to do the first phase of the residential, which will be adjacent to one of the existing office buildings. As Morgan mentioned, we are proposing 318 units in a 5-story building that is going to wrap a garage that will be completely hidden to the public space. That garage will be shared with the office building. You can go to the next slide. You can kind of just see how it fits into the existing plan today, the aerial from today. So we'll be accessing off of the main boulevard, and then there will be a separate side boulevard down to our main entrance. We have 3 courtyards that the landscape architect will get into a little bit more detail, but we're taking a vacant, well, not a vacant, but the parking lot today and really transforming it into this kind of beautiful green space with an active space that'll line the 2 main boulevards. So as I mentioned, it'll be 2 5-story buildings totaling 318 units with a separate garage with 711 stalls, 300 of which will be dedicated to the office building. We will have 476 dedicated parking spots for the residential, which exceeds a 1.5 per unit parking ratio and just about a 1.0 per bedroom. We're providing a diverse unit mix with efficiency units, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, a majority of which are efficiency and the 1-bedroom units. This will be a state-of-the-art facility with fitness center, resident lounges, work from home space. As I mentioned, we have 3 courtyards, resort-style swimming pool, lawn games, fire pits, grilling area, and ample bike storage on site. The building will be all electric, eliminating the need for fossil fuels. We will employ energy-efficient mechanical systems, LED lighting, Energy Star appliances to really help reduce the overall energy demand. As I mentioned, we will be the developer, general contractor, and asset manager, and this property will have full on-site property management, maintenance, and leasing. Just some of the project benefits. This is part of kind of the master plan here and having the opportunity to replace kind of overutilized or underutilized parking and develop it into kind of this beautiful community. As you can imagine, there's little to no taxes getting produced right now from the site. So in terms of increasing annual revenues to the town in terms of property taxes, excise vehicle taxes, in addition to the upfront fees. I think it's important to note that this is making progress toward the Littleton Housing Production Plan, and as Morgan identified, I think we're all familiar with the much needed housing and housing shortfall that we have here. Having the predominant 1-bedrooms in this community will be appealing to the singles, really appealing to empty nesters and downsizers that want to stay in Littleton, sell their house, and stay within the community. And we will have, it is a transit-oriented housing option with being right off of Interstate 495, and there will be a future shuttle, plans for a future shuttle to the MBTA train. I think it's important to note, too, while it feels big with 318 units, having 318 more, young professionals, empty nester downsizers staying in the community and spending in the community, they're going to be propping up and supporting the local businesses that rely on these residents that will be coming to town with increased disposable income. This will create over 200 new construction jobs and 6 permanent on-site jobs once completed. And I think it is important to note that right now there is no stormwater treatment, so all that rain and comes from the gasoline from the cars. We are going to be implementing, an intense stormwater treatment plant with infiltration and groundwater recharge, which will be a huge benefit. So I'm going to bring up Joe Pesnola with Hancock Engineers to kind of walk through the civil side. Thank you.
This is all online, by the way. If you want to look at them, you don't need to take a picture. They're all, you can get them off our website, correct, Mara?
They will be.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, for the record, Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates, offices at 34 Chelmsford Street in Chelmsford. We are the project surveyors. We've been surveying the site for the Lipoli companies for a couple of years now, and we've been brought in as the civil engineers for JLB on this project in particular. So we did do an updated survey because there has been work out there. The north-south boulevard with the center island was partially built this fall. So we had gone out and located all of that, along with some of the new utilities. So the layout, as Mark went over, has the two buildings to the south and to the northwest, and then the parking garage is tucked behind. The parking garage will have 711 spaces. 300 of those spaces are slated to support the office building. So we have the balance of that, as well as surface parking to the west of the building and directly in front of the building. And additionally, we have parking garages in the westerly parking lot. There'll be 12 parking garages there, 12 bays within those small buildings, small one-story buildings. One of those will be handicap accessible. So as Mark said, we have more than the 1.5 parking spaces per. It turns out to be about one parking space per bedroom, which seems to be a industry standard from that standpoint. As far as the existing topography on site, to the west side of the office building, there's currently a steep slope down to the parking lots. If you've been out there, there's a long stairwell that goes from the parking lot up to that office building. So we've got some grading to do there. Everything from there pitches westerly, kind of northwesterly towards 495 and the stormwater wetlands that's to the far west of the site on Great Road. Again, the utilities are, some of the utilities are from the master plan, come kind of through that north-south boulevard and then westerly in front of our building. So we're tying into the water that's recently been installed out there for both our fire protection and our domestic. Electric is right there underground. That'll be in kind of the alcove between the two buildings. That's kind of our service entrance. There'll be an entrance to the parking garage there, but there'll also be service entrances. That's where the trash will be rolled out. That's where the transformers are. So that's kind of our business end of the building, if you will. Again, back to the grades kind of pitch westerly. So the main southerly building will be up at elevation 286, and then the kind of back building will be down one level from that at elevation 274. And then the parking garage will meet those elevations, marry with those elevations. There will be an entrance to the parking garage directly from the future parking lot for the office building. That'll be up at the third level of the garage, again, servicing the 300 spaces in the garage that will be set aside for the office building. From the standpoint of stormwater, we are taking care of our stormwater on site. We will collect the roof drainage, the drainage from the top level of the parking deck, and the impervious surfaces for the new parking and the new driveways. There'll be a series of catch basins that will collect that and run in a new pipe that runs from east to west towards the west parking lot. And then there's proposed a large underground infiltration system that kind of wraps around that one-story garage structure in the parking lot there. We did soil testing out there, and the soils are conducive to infiltration. Once there will be an overflow from that system that will go into the existing 36-inch pipe that's out there. That 36-inch pipe heads northwesterly, goes into a 48-inch pipe, which ultimately drains into the stormwater wetlands that's on Great Road to the far west. The system that we're proposing will treat the runoff using a filtration practice. It will recharge the groundwater back into the ground, and it will attenuate the stormwater rates to pre-development rates. I mean, it is a developed site with the parking lot and outbuilding and other impervious surfaces, but there is quite a bit of pervious surface along 495 that we're going to be taking up. So there's need for attenuation so that we don't increase the rate of runoff to that stormwater wetlands in all the storms that we reviewed, the 2, 10, and 100 year. We did do a swept path analysis to bring the fire trucks through the site, and we've met on 2 occasions with the fire department just to talk about fire access, both for vehicles but also for fire personnel. Talk about where the fire department connection will be at the main entrance, where the fire alarm panels will be, where hydrants will be. That's all been worked out in those meetings, and we look forward to continuing to work with the fire department with regards to their needs for the project. But safe to say, we are of the belief that we fully meet the state fire access regulations with regards to the layout of the site and the points of access that we're giving to the fire department. So that's a general overview of the engineering, and I think we're going to move over to architecture.
Comments later.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Planning Board. I'm Lawrence Lappamarta with Womack Hampton Architects. I am representing JLB for this project, King Street Residences. What you see here is a typical floor plan of the buildings combined, showing the 1 bedrooms efficiencies, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedroom units. 3 bedroom units being green, efficiencies being red, blue being the 1 bedrooms, and the orange as being the 2 bedroom. For this project, on this slide, this slide and the next slide, I think there was another one, I think, one, right? Was there the cut section, or is the cut section next? All right. 13 and 14, okay. For this project, we employed contemporary architectural style enhanced with traditional roofs and facade elements to anchor and strengthen the building's corners, ends, and primary arrival points. To address the building scale, we avoided large, flat walls and introduced depth, step masses, and colored variations to create shadows and visual interest. Additionally, strategic material transitions and subtle color shifts help to further break down the overall mass. We've drawn inspiration from the neighboring retail design concept to ensure the project creates a visual connection that allows the building to fit naturally while still allowing the design to stand on its own as a premier community. Right here we have a building height cross section that just illustrates the project is well under the 75-foot maximum allowed by zoning. In this slide, we have a slide of the leasing view. This rendering highlights the community's main entrance, the leasing portal framed in white masonry, against the darker gray and wood tone panels, create a welcoming focal point. This is our front corner element. In the front corner view, gabled roof lines define the building edge, while the rooftop terrace adds outdoor space and visual variety. Integrating this terrace into the roof line anchors the corner and helps break up the upper massing, maintaining a pedestrian friendly scale. On this one, this is the corner turning down the boulevard. Turning toward the boulevard, the building steps in and out, creates shadows and visual depth. By using masonry and siding as various depths, we avoid flat, uninterrupted facades, helping the building's overall height feel more connected to the pedestrian walkway. Oh, good.
Hi, Allison Daviday here with Copley Wolf, a landscape architect. We're out of Boston. So just going to go through the landscape design really quick. This is our overall site plan. We've got a pretty good variety of amenity spaces and different programming going on. So a couple courtyards and terraces. We've got a dog park with a both small and large dog area. A small covered parking area, and an entry space that's going to reflect the building and be a welcoming moment. I will mention as well that the streetscape design is part of the master plan, so we're staying kind of within our property line. We've got a pretty heavy landscape buffer along the back edge of the property, and then a lot of kind of landscape area between the building facade and the walkways as well. And we're going to focus on the front entry and one of the terraces. So this is the entry plaza, a large hardscape area mirroring the building, and a couple different varieties of seating. So smaller gathering spaces, seat walls, and movable seating, et cetera. So kind of creating a moment that's going to reflect that lobby and leasing area. Some of the precedent images shown here and on this slide, you don't have to go back, they're just conceptual. Thanks. And then for the amenity terrace, packed with programming, we've got, as Mark mentioned earlier, kind of dining and cooking areas, lounge areas, games. We've got a large pergola in the center that's kind of anchoring the space and separating into kind of different exterior rooms, if you will. A pool, and then some more active lawn and bocce, kind of focusing on more activity. So a variety of different types of spaces in this area. And then I'm just going to pass it to traffic.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sam Gregorio. I'm with the Senior Traffic Engineer at TEC. So obviously, you know TEC from the other parts of the project as well. And although you haven't really heard me at any of the other meetings, I've been behind the traffic as well as for the retail component, the master planning. So as we look at the traffic for this individual part of the site, it's generally all encompassing as part of what you've seen before through even Green's peer review of the DEIR, FEIR document, as we've been going through the retail, which obviously you'll hear some more about later in the night. For the individual part that we're looking at right now, the 318 units, this is a certain percentage of that master plan, and this is for the overall plan, not just the residential component of it. So for these 318 units, we're looking at about 115 new vehicle trips in the weekday morning peak hour. So again, that's 1 hour over multiple hours. Obviously, that number grows a little bit. In the PM peak hour, 67 new vehicle trips. So one of the reasons why that might seem, we'll say, low for the point of this presentation is one, it's part of the overall master plan, but it's also taking into account that as this opens and as other parts of the site open, there will be other things on site to go to. So there's a lot of shared nature to the trips. So even with the retail, as we'll hear again later tonight, some of these residential trips that are on top of that 67 are the ones that are staying on site. They don't need a vehicle. They can walk to the restaurant. They can walk to the retail. They don't need to be in a car in order to do some of the things they're doing. So what we're looking at here is what we'll call the vehicle trips, the cars, that will be entering and/or exiting the site. So all encompassing and this is also, again, for the retail point that, again, you'll hear later tonight, the offsite mitigation for this particular development is part of the overall offsite mitigation that you've been hearing about at the last few meetings. The improvements along King Street, improvements along Great Road, improvements around the Common. So this individual site doesn't have a proposal for individual mitigation for the residential. It's part of the larger master plans mitigation program that's been talked about with Mass DOT through the MEPA process. And I know that, for instance, Corinne over in the corner has been looking at as part of the retail site as the whole. So with that, that's kind of the wrap up on the traffic. Of course, I'll be here for questions and later tonight as well for the next retail compartment as well.
So we will make sure that Myron gets a copy of this, and this is available to the public online. I will point out, I know the elevations were a little crowded and they may seem a little dark. Those aren't the actual colors. The renderings are a little bit more better representative of the colors that we are proposing. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions. We appreciate the opportunity, and we're really excited to be part of this this project in this community. Thank you.
Board, Mark. No, this is what you see nowadays in commercial, large-scale apartment complexes. The fit, the finish, hardy. I'm assuming it's hardy plank, brick and hardy plank.
Yes, sir.
Like that,
Yes.
right?
Yep. Yes. Yep.
See it all the time. No, this is moving up.
Bartlett.
Well, just out of idle curiosity, could you point out where the there's a van that's supposed to take people to the train station, where that bus stop is going to be?
Yeah, I think we'd have to coordinate that with the police as part of the master plan. I know it's something that we are looking into as it'll benefit, our residents, the, future phase residents, the retail. I don't know where that has been identified yet, but I think that's probably ongoing with MEPA and with the town engineers.
I can speak to it a little bit if you want. So if you wanted today, we could point to a location we've picked out, but what I would tell you more sincerely, I think, is that we're working with the different groups and agencies that are providing some of those shuttles. We're working with on the different transportation elements to make sure that the location is best fit for what they need. So I would say we're still working on it, but we have a couple options in mind that are sort of along that main boulevard. But we want them to weigh in more, and we've reached out to all of them and are having active conversations with them right now.
You're talking multi-stops, I would think, right?
I think so. It might be, again, it's what they want to do and what's sufficient, and also, working with Sam and his team too, that we're not creating traffic issues, and hopefully more like alleviating them. But we have a good idea right now, so it's been thought of.
Daryl? A couple of, they're relatively minor. On the civil plan where you show the garage and the third floor, is that gonna be like a split garage, the first 3 floors separate from the top 3 floors on that, or is it one 6-story?
Yeah, so there is an internal ramp, so, do you mind trying to make that bigger?
Try.
I think you just hit like from current. Yeah, from current slide. Yeah, there you go. So due to the topography, the office building, you can see there on the right, they will access the garage on what is the 3rd level. Yeah, and there is an internal ramp. Our access point will be in the back there at the 1st level, and there will be ramped up. And we will have assigned spaces for both the residential and the office.
The first 3 floors for the residential and the top 3 floors for the...
Yeah, or we may do it by sides of the garage. The garage will be fobbed access for security reasons for both, but we were thinking of keeping the office, for convenience, and the residential on the side left. And I do want to point out, so where the entrance to our garage is at the end of the boulevard, that is where we are going to have kind of our move-ins, trash pickup, all out of sight. That's where the transformers will be, the water utility room. So we thought the design was appropriate to kind of hide that kind of behind the building.
And while we're on this one, I like the idea of the boulevards, and I guess I'll defer to our traffic studies there about the accessibility of a ladder truck through that. Still seems quite contorted.
Yeah, as Joe said, we have met with the chief and
I don't want to
his
get rid of the
captains.
boulevard, but I just, with all of the little dividers, it just seems difficult to envision how a ladder truck goes in there.
Yeah, no, we'll be sure to, you know, work with him and make sure that he's comfortable and his team's comfortable with the plan, of course.
And then the other one is kind of trivial, maybe it's just not at this level of detail, building plan, typical floors, maybe 4 or 5 ahead. I see all the stairwells. Is there elevators?
Yes, there are, yes, yeah. We have 3 elevators planned.
It just, I couldn't see where they were gonna be on this.
Yeah, so there'll be one, so there will be one kind of in the back building. There's gonna be one right here in kind of the midpoint of the garage, and then another one right here for convenience, yeah. So pretty evenly dispersed.
Yeah, it was just difficult to see for,
Yeah,
for handicap access and
yeah, if I provided the ground floor plan, obviously the full set of plans are available in your package.
Other than that, no, I like I said, they were just kind of trivial. And then I think the other part during the traffic summary, it, you know, is explicit about the morning peak hour, but I think there's actually a broader distribution of early commuters, later commuters.
Yeah.
There.
You know,
I think just standing that there's 115 new vehicle trips per day, 300 apartments.
Yes.
Doesn't.
Sure, there, yeah. I mean,
More day, you know, I think people are gonna be looking at that's the wrong number, so I wanted
Yep.
to clarify that you will.
Well,
there's
we've
a
submitted
broader
a traffic
distribution of that.
traffic memo with a little bit more detail
Okay.
as part of the submission, yes, yeah. And we're happy to, for the next meeting, of course, provide
Yeah.
that information.
No, I'm just mentioning it because we're expecting that, right?
Yes.
To come in, not that that's number by itself is what's gonna stand for the,
Correct,
for the
yes.
traffic study. Okay. That's all that I have.
I'd like to remind everyone that this housing is part of our MBTA community's obligation. And the state allowed us to do 600 of our 750 units required at this site. So this is just the background, that this project had already been approved at town meeting, but we were able to avoid building an additional 600 units somewhere else. And part of that is the shuttle to the train station. Then, and my other, comments are basically, thank you for the shroud at the roof. I'm sure there's going to be
On the roof? Yeah, it'll be fully screened. I mean, I can have the architect touch on that before, yeah, it'll be.
Thank you for the comment about the color, because it doesn't come across well on the elevation.
Especially on that small to show.
And for Napoli, I think we'll need an overall parking look at for the office building, because you're changing that whole, you're putting surface parking around it where that doesn't exist already. And it's just not that I don't think you would do, lease the office without parking, but we need to see the whole picture. That's all. Yep, understood. So, this is a site plan review. It's not a referendum on whether this building should exist or whatever. So with that being said, I'll open it. It's appropriate now to open it to the whoever wants to speak. Yes.
Hi guys, Janine Wood, 12 Christina Street. I would like to ask the board to continue to keep in mind all the things that we worked on. I was at all the town meetings for the MBTA. I've been at several of the planning board meetings leading up to this. What I didn't hear tonight was how many affordable units there will be, how many senior-specific units there will be. And that was a big part of what the town asked for, voted for, and worked for at town meeting. So as we go forward, the only thing I've heard in the plans that actually kind of upsets me is that all the seniors and low income are going to be put across the street down the way. Please don't let them do that. And so I'm just.
Well, we'll have Morgan talk about that.
Okay, so, you know.
Actually, and that's, your comment is taken.
Okay.
Our zoning requires 10% of units
To be affordable.
affordable in some way, but there's a wide range of affordability. Some of what is considered affordable in our area is actually, for many of you, would not be affordable. But that's the way it is. And part of what we negotiated at the time of the site plan approval was we were getting a pretty large number of deeply affordable units. Once again, I'll let Morgan from Lapoli talk about that. But the goal was to get some kind of deeply affordable units set aside primarily for seniors. Not all of the affordables, but a big number of them. And the town hall was considered as, redeveloping that, to satisfy that. The developers has chosen to satisfy that with their development at 14 Great Road, which we have yet to see, but that's the plan. And furthermore, the concern of our board has been, because it's a phased project, that we may not get everything that we planned because the future phases may not be built or whatever. In response to that, Lapoli has stated they want to build all of their affordable requirements, all the affordables that are required by this at once, rather than doing it piecemeal throughout the project. As I understand it, that one of the ways we're going to do this is a memorandum of understanding between Lapoli and the selectmen. And there are remedies in our zoning if, for whatever reason, they aren't achieved. And it's a pretty substantial financial payment per unit. So we're as concerned as you are.
Okay, that's good to hear. Because truly, at those town meetings, we were listening to plans about an integrated, development.
I would say to you, Janine, that not everyone agrees with that many people, including seniors, would like to be together in a community. So I'm just saying that there's different ways of looking at it.
I'd hate to have everyone shunted off, and I would, those first plans, there was 44 units, and that should have been 5 affordable units in that space.
This is what we've been concerned about, and we have a letter from the building commissioner that states what they under the zoning with phases, they aren't technically required to provide affordables until about 30% of the units have been built. They're offering to build them now.
Okay. Well, I'm asking you to hold their feet to the fire for
Yes,
us. Thank you.
Totally agree. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I have a few questions.
So I don't typically come to these, but, Alexander Iganov, 141 Goldsmith Street. So I am typically concerned about a few things. One of them is taxes. I really don't want to pay anything more. So, and another one is traffic. So I have a question to I think you're an engineer. You were just talking quite a bit about drainage, stormwater, and that kind of
We have a traffic engineer here.
Okay.
That they can
Well, what I was wondering about with drainage, because you spent quite a considerable time talking about it, but I'm a layman, I don't really know the specifics, but what I can understand is that if something goes wrong, it's a pretty large building. If something fails, who's responsible for actually handling that and for how long? Like, if you build the building and something fails due to something that you started in the beginning and now drainage actually isn't working, now something is clogging, there's a point that is nearby, they've already been having problems with their, I think, the septic system for a while. Now you're building this big addition, something fails, who's paying for it? For how long? Do you have a plan? How is that gonna work out?
They're responsible for it, and this is tying into town sewers. This is not private sewer system, but they're responsible for everything on that site. And they have to make sure that the post-construction, the water that's on the site now is water coming off the site is no greater than what's on there right now. They're responsible for that before we even approve the thing.
Okay, and then after it completes?
They're still responsible forever.
They're responsible forever. Okay, that sounds good. Then another question.
Can I talk to you about taxes?
Sure, yeah.
So, this was a previous building that was 500,000 square feet that has been empty for many years.
Yeah.
So there's tax base took a big hit. We're building, and I think that there was a slide that said that, the property taxes will be $1.25 million. It's not insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
The cars in the garage will pay local excise taxes as you do on the car in your driveway. So it's from a tax point of view, we've been working at full build out. There will be a significant, $3 to $5 million extra from this development than would otherwise be if it was just an office building.
So for us, it's not going to affect us that much again.
And then I guess the other question you had was about the conditions for approval of these site plan approvals is that this is a private, the roads are private. They're plowed, maintained by the developer. So the town is not taking any additional responsibility.
Okay.
I want to just add that, if we look over time at that site, it had a high value of about approximately $62 million. It's currently assessed at $41 million, which has represented a significant decrease in revenue to the town due to its lack of being a vital, building there. So I think that the combination of the revitalization businesses there and the new retail pieces there, we're expecting that the overall assessed value is going to continue to increase rather than decrease, which it has been doing for the last 10 years.
Okay, sounds good. Well, so one other thing I wanted to address is you stated road improvements will be substantially complete by 2028. So, which basically, what does that mean, substantially complete? Would somebody clarify to me? Because in essence, if you are going to finish the building, but there's not enough mitigation to deal with the traffic, people are going to move in. There's going to be delays. Delays are always present with whatever mitigations you're going to be putting in. So now people are going to move into the building. They're going to start driving. There's no mitigations they're substantially complete, but how complete? What is the definition of that substantially complete?
Great. I'll just add on to this because this will be important for the whole entire night probably. So the roadway giving that into driveways to Mass DOT's property, we have to go through a permit to access state highway process with Mass DOT. And obviously you've heard over the last few meetings with the retail, all the improvements that are coming in. So with that, TDC will be going through a design process with DOT, 25%, 75%, 100% design, et cetera, plus the construction. Bound by that permit, we can't open our doors until the improvements are done. So, and what we call substantially complete is, if we build something but it hasn't been 100% inspected yet, it's not complete. but you can drive on it. A signal might be on, but the physical approval as built and all that stuff are not fully stamped yet by Mass DOT isn't done. So that's the idea behind substantially complete. It's not physically, we're at 98%, we're not at 100% because they have to physically stamp something to say we're done. All the paperwork has been filed, et cetera, which been through the state of Massachusetts is not the fastest process when it comes to paper, but that's generally the idea. So Mass DOT can physically put Jersey barriers out in front of our driveways if we're not done. So that's the idea. We have to go through their permit process and they will stamp approval of the permit as complete to open, complete to have occupancy and kind of things like that going forward. And so that's generally the idea of the process. So when we say substantially, it's not because we're going to be open sidewalks, there's construction vehicles still out there, things like that. One of the aspects of this as well is obviously the full design and improvement of Mass DOT also incorporate 410 as well. So 410, the sidewalk in front of 410, for instance, if that permit has not come in front of you for site plan review yet, that sidewalk might not be built yet. Because why are we going to build something for a construction vehicle to drive back over and destroy? So that aspect of it, it's not complete full. Because we might have to, it all depends on as things come for site plan review before you. So it's everything for Mass DOT through our process with MIPA and their original review process of the permitting was also to understand that certain things might get pushed for like 410, for instance, because we can't build a sidewalk if the construction vehicle is going to be sitting on it. If that becomes the last site plan review to come in front of you. The overall improvement for the site, King Street, the Great Road sidewalk going out towards the ramps, the Littleton Common improvements that we're going to have for the pedestrian crossings, things like that. Those will all generally have to be complete before we have the occupancy on the site for the residential and for the retail components.
This is an important point because the state talked about, requires improvements in the common. And we had the recent, we've talked about this at the other meetings. We've had, the recent fatality there. And what he just said was that those improvements will not wait for a full build out of the site, but will be accomplished in relationship to this project and the retail project. And one of the conditions that we'll have in the decision is that the town be involved, because right now it's just you and Mass DOT. And we would like the town, however it's constituted, to have an input into the mitigation, particularly in the common.
One last question, just, sorry, I like to be thorough, but you also mentioned, I was looking at the data, one second, I've written it down before I ask the question. So your data shows a low number of evening trips. What kind of model were you using? Like, does it account for the specific bottlenecks and school buses specifically in the area around the building where that's being built? Because I'm not fully understanding why the evening trips when people are coming back home, etc., like that's the heaviest traffic. Why is that actually experiencing a less of a peak increase than the morning traffic? Could you explain that a bit more? What's the math behind it?
We're going to have a later presentation about traffic peer review. So let's.
Well, Corinne's not. There will be a traffic peer review.
Right.
And you can defer that question to.
We have, part of the town process is we have professionals that review all of this. It's not just one professional presenting to us, we have then another professional that reviews their work. So we will be, and one of them is here, we will be reviewing all of this.
And as I discussed when I asked my question there, that's just the 1 hour, it's not the full traffic profile of the site, which is what the traffic review is going to actually take into account, the entire 16-hour day, okay. Not just 9 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sanders.
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to clarify some information here, and I think that the town folks here need to know exactly what this developer has done since he bought this property over here at IBM. Before IBM was over there, the town was, not before, but when the IBM was over there, the town was collecting money for the taxes over there, which ranged that when IBM moved out, it was about $60 million that they was paying tax on. But whether you know it or not, when IBM went out, the taxpayers in the town of Littleton picked up paying the taxes on that property at 550 King Street. When the developer came in here and bought this property, he is paying his share of the taxes until that property rises back up to $60 million. I spoke many times with the town chief assessor, and I've been keeping my eye on it because taxpayers are still paying taxes to get back up to 60. I think it's at 41 he's paying. We're paying the difference to get back up to $60,000. I mean, $60 million. Then the taxpayers of Littleton will stop paying and the developer will continue to pay off. A lot of you didn't know that, but I know that and I've been watching it. And I've been checking with the chief assessor as to how much it has been going up every time we just did a recent evaluation. Now, when we talk about the buildings or the apartments here, Mr. Chairman, the developer went to the governor, Governor Healy, and asked her to waiver the requirement beyond the half a mile from the train station, the MBTA in Littleton, because she allowed Littleton to put the 150 unit down there next to the property and allow the 600 to be put over on the 550 property. That developer went to the governor and asked the governor. And the governor approved that. But the people in this town didn't know that happened like that. But that's exactly what happened. Why that 600 is being picked up by him, piggybacking off of him. And let me tell you something else about this developer that people don't know in this town. When he came into this town, he bought 550 over there. He was not interested in 410. 410 came about when we found out that it went nationwide, that we had the most gun dealers in one location in this nation than any other point in this nation. And you know what? It was the town of Littleton that went to the developer and asked him to buy that building. He went and tried to negotiate. The guy wanted too much money for it, but he kept negotiating till he got the guy down. He bought the building. That's how 410 became a part of this developer project here in the town of Littleton. He bought that because the town wanted to get rid of it. I understand right now there's about 78 or 79% of the gun dealers are out of that building because gun dealers in business have rights. You can't walk on people's rights. So what he did was that when it expired, then he wasn't renewed because he's going to tear that building down over there. And let me tell you something else, Mr. Chairman, what this developer decided to do. He decided that he was going to help Littleton with affordable housing. He's going to give you, based on the amount that he's supposed to with the 10%, he's going to advance you the total number of housing, affordable housing, that the town of Littleton would receive from the properties that he will build for housing. He is also going to put in deep, affordable senior housing over there. Initially, it was like 30, 35, 40. I asked him to give as many deep affordable housing to seniors that he could over there. He's now found a nonprofit organization, and he wants to put all that housing over there in 410. He's going to be coming to the town with a plan on 410 over there. This is the kind of stuff that most citizens don't know that happened. You probably ask, how do you find out, George? Because I'm a seeker. And I find out what's going on. And I look into it, and I check into it. Yes, I have spoken to the developer many times. I sent him a letter recent that I sent to this board. But I want to say this, Mr. Chairman, then I'm going to sit down. We need to understand this developer has spent millions of dollars in this town, not on the property that he has over here, but on property that the town came to him and asked him to take care of something, and he went to Governor Baker on the sewer system that we have in the town of Littleton. We would not have this sewer system. I was on the committee, the study committee with Light and Water. It got launched because this developer went to Governor Baker and asked Governor Baker to give the money to Littleton to put that sewer system in. This developer has done a lot in this town, and I'm just wanting to say it like it is. I'm a straight talker. That's why I got the Straight Talk Show. Thank you.
Yes. Maybe George's got the info I need here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Michael Zeldin. I'm at 11 Loann Street. And the address is significant because I can easily walk to the area that has occupied us tonight. And I just have a few questions. These are mainly because I know the stage we're at, we're still sort of working stuff out. This is hard, very hard. I appreciate it. The first question is that I try to get a view using different techniques, but I was just wondering if any of the team has looked into this, is what's the, let's say you have a tenant on the top floor. What is the view in the direction of 495? Is that open, or is that going to be foliage, trees, whatever? Do you have any idea at the moment? That's just a question. And the question has mainly connected with the following sad fact. During the tough summer months, when the humidity goes up and there's a problem in 495, big surprise. An incredible wave of, I'll just simply say, pollutants, of a variety of them. They happen to drift, due to any number of reasons, they happen to drift into the town, especially along King Street, in the direction toward the other entryway to 495, and also further in, frankly, to where I live. And neighbors and I always know to get prepared for this, shut windows, go about air conditioning. Has there any been on your side, on your efforts to figure out how to site this residence, has there been any indication to you that this might affect, shall we say, the attractiveness of the units? In other words, has it been looked at as something that is going to be, as it were, part of the scene that affects this particular development? Now, it could be because it's seasonal, and anyway, what could you do about it? Turn on, basically treat the air. It's about all you can really do. The second thing about 495 is, and the way it's configured, is that at certain times during the 24-hour cycle, the traffic noise is considerable, depending on how the wind is blowing, what the temperature is, I mean, it is stacked full of stuff over which no one here has control. And I'm just wondering, in your engineering, assessment, placement, whatever, what are you going to do? Do you feel you have to worry about noise abatement? God help us. Okay? I mean, I'm not asking you to do it. I'm asking whether or not there's an awareness. Now, on the positive side, I believe that the architectural rendering of the building itself, has that been, as it were, as far as you're concerned, that's pretty much it? Is that what it's approximately going to look like in your minds to this point? No one wants to say
I was going to answer everything at the end. I was going to let you ask all your questions and got me answered.
Well, this is to me sort of the big one, because I'm sort of, this is one of the tough things to do, is design an apartment building, especially with this location and everything else that goes with it. You know, you have labs and you have buildings already in front of you. You have a place in the back and all the rest. My first quiz question is, how come there's so little glass? And this design, look, I do know, having traveled and been involved in some building design, it's very difficult to design and come up with an architecture for an apartment building that pleases everyone. In fact, it's impossible. However, there's something disheartening about certain apartment buildings when the resident walks up to it or leaves it or gets visited, that can be disheartening. I'll put a negative on it. And there are lots of them around for reasons, there are no rules, that some of them are, I want to go back there just to be there. Okay, I'd like you to ditch that one that you've got up there, to be honest, and come up with something where most people would say, oh, I'd like to be here. And I know that's tough. I mean, if it's 2 or 3 stories, it gets easier. But once you get above about 4, 5, 6, you got problems. Unless, of course, you go to Spain. Thanks.
Yeah, we tried, I can have the architect touch on this. I mean, we tried to have it blend in kind of with the surrounding nature. You know, we used some greens. There's a lot of wood tones to kind of give it that earthy feel. We do have the pitched roofs to kind of tie in with the retail, but we still try to keep it with that kind of New England style nature that is Littleton. We didn't want to make it all glass and modern and futuristic. We didn't think that would fit in with the town of Littleton. So I'm not the designer. I'm not the, so we kind of gave them some direction, but we think they came up with a pretty good design that meets as many styles as possible, doesn't seem overbearing. I think they did a great job with the facade and the massing to not seem like it feels like it's such a big structure. And so we're open to suggestions with it. That was our initial thought. And again, it was based off of trying to get it to fit in with the surrounding town, with what Lupoli is proposing next door and his vision for the entire master plan, which I think is an incredible vision and really a transformational project for the town. And so that's kind of the approach we took. We have considered the noise and the trash. It's a good thing we have a full on-site property management that'll be there to clean up any trash that will probably catch it before it gets out to King Street. So hopefully that'll only get better. Thank you.
Mark Rambacher, 205 Hartwell. I had a couple questions and a couple comments. One is, I didn't know if you considered passive house construction techniques they're a lot more energy efficient. I know you said you're all electric. I was hoping you were looking into that. On the parking garage, is there a requirement on car chargers and the ratio of car chargers and things like that, both for residents and I guess the commercial part? I generally like this plan. I think it would be good to show elevations from both 110 and 119 with the proposed retail structures there, so you could see, how high what you see for the apartment buildings from the different side. I think that would be helpful. And my other question is, in your plan with the phase 1, you're leaving a huge amount of asphalt there for the existing parking lot. Is there a plan in the early phases to remove that, to turn it into temporary green space? or something until phase 2, phase 3, whatever hits that, or what will it look like when phase 1 is complete and phase 2 hasn't started?
I'm going to let Morgan touch upon the other lot. We are, as you know, Littleton is a stretch code community, so we will be building to the stretch code. I think that's a great suggestion. We are happy to look at what the elevations would look like from both Great Road and King Street from that far away to see how the structure would fit in, especially with the retail. So we can coordinate with Dave and his team at PCA on what those would look like combined.
I saw something here about when we did the balloon test in the
Yeah,
parking lot.
those are good tests to do.
I think people should look at that. I was present for that. I was standing where the retail would go, and they had the lift go.
Why don't I pull that back up for you?
Yeah, pull it back up, because it was interesting to me, because I was not convinced about, at that time, 6-story buildings. And it was really interesting that you could barely notice this from the King Street portion of the site. And so, based on that, I agree. I think you should show some kind of town green, vista from King Street, not above, not to describe, anyway, from eye level. And I think people might be surprised at how diminutive it becomes. It's a huge site.
Sorry, I got booted from the, I can pull it up, but.
All right, I have a question while you're pulling it up.
Yeah.
You're gonna put balconies, everyone's gonna get a real balcony, not a Juliet balcony.
No, we're not proposing any Juliet balconies, and we have, I think, about 50% of the units will have balconies right now, off the current count.
Okay. What about on the side, like as Mr. Zeldin talked about, where the 495 is, maybe Juliet balconies there?
Yeah, with the stretch code communities, right, so we're gonna have to be doing casement windows, and there's increased insulation, so those kind of already will act as an enhanced acoustic mitigation versus kind of single hung, vinyl windows. And we will study that further. Obviously, we want our residents to have a good experience and not hear the noise. We do have some balconies there. I think there are some great views there.
I agree.
And so that's why we wanted to have a good mix and sprinkle it throughout the building.
A Juliet balcony doesn't really work. It's just a balcony.
Yeah.
For namesake, you can't get out on it.
You can't. We don't like Juliets. They seem to always have waterproofing issues, so we try not to do them.
No, I agree. I was amazed to see that they were proposing all that.
Yeah. We think the residents like it, and there's such beautiful views here in all directions.
That's what I thought Mr. Zeldin was going to get to. The views along, on the 495. You're going to be able to see Mount Wachusett.
Yeah, and since we are up right as the highway dips down, which is also a great sound barrier, right? Sound doesn't travel up. So we think even starting on the 3rd floor, they're going to have pretty incredible views of Mount Wachusett and the surrounding area, which is really beautiful.
Anyone else?
Yes. Can I speak to actually Mark's other
Oh, sure.
question?
Yep, please.
The other question was about what are we going to do with some of the vacant parking spaces or parking lots while we're under construction. Our plan right now, though we're continuing to explore it, though, is to, again, unless they're being utilized, of course, by the office building, but is to strip those and convert them into grass until they're ready for development. We also are working with our landscape team to see what trees we can replant, and there's a possibility that they would be moved some of these lots while we're looking to build additional infrastructure or on the residential parcel as well. So we think it's going to look really nice in the interim. But certainly a lot of it's not going to be just sitting as parking lots.
I need to be accepted as a panelist. I don't know that you, Martin. No.
I just found that thing I was looking at. It was in one of the sections showing, through the building.
So LCTV, can you That's a good question. And Mark is a panelist. Chair. Judy?
Linda Terracano, 19 Woodford Drive. Is there any solar?
We do not have solar proposed. It will be solar ready as it is required to under the stretch code.
And is there, and will there be any parking with solar above, you know?
Solar canopies. Yeah, we aren't proposing any solar. We will have, and I apologize to follow back up on. We will have required EV stations, so there will be 20% EV stations with infrastructure to do another 20% that will be shared with us and the office. There'll be some in the garage as well as for some of the surface parking. As I said, the building will be solar ready, meaning the trusses in the roof will be upsized to handle the loads and the uplift, as well as the conduit run for the solar. But for today, we are not proposing to have solar on the roof, given the amount of mechanical systems up there that we're trying to hide. And Nick, it was mentioned, but the bike storage, bike accommodation, could you maybe point that out on the?
Yeah,
and how do you deal with e-bikes, which are somewhat dangerous to
fire departments don't love them. We will have, luckily we do have, let me just pull it up for you, Chair. I got kicked out of the Zoom again. We do have a partial basement level that'll be all type 1 concrete, so we would look to do some EV chargers in there. Because they'll appreciate that it's in a fully enclosed concrete and not a wood frame portion of the building. And in the plans that were submitted, again, we only showed a representative floor plan. The amenity space, which is on the first floor and a little bit of the second floor, that's where we'll have resident storage and bike storage as well. And you'll be able to see that in kind of the plans that were submitted.
Anyone else? Yes.
Thank you. While he's coming up, just one other thing I noticed it in the drawings that you gave us for the overall master plan layout, we have building numbers. The building numbers in the drawing package here don't match building 300 and 400 in the other drawing package. So if we could get consistency with all of the building numbers so that I'm not looking at building 1, 2, and 3 and then they're not on the master plan. So again, just get that consistency for us.
Thank you. Brock Davis, 13 Gray Farm Road. Probably the youngest person at this meeting. Just a recent, fresh graduate. I'm looking for places to live, looking for to have some sort of apartment and housing. And I think Littleton having apartment and housing would be fantastic for me, just as with me being in Littleton, central Massachusetts, lots of access to everywhere in Massachusetts, as well as up into New Hampshire with Nashua, down to Connecticut if need be. Additionally, if I remember correctly, the IBM moved out of those buildings sometime during COVID?
4 or 5 years ago.
Before then. So at least 5 to 6 years that area has mostly been a parking lot with no real use being used for that plot of land. And additionally, with the Yangtze River Chinese restaurant being torn down, that's an additional plot of land that's not currently being used. So I think having some sort of use with that land would be beneficial for the town, especially if it's more housing as well as courtyards for community and activities. Thank you.
For our young person here, we've been working on this for 6 years. And it was, the timing has had a lot to do with the sewer being installed, which only recently, maybe 3 months ago, December, so nothing really could be done until that was complete.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Kate Cruz, Goldsmith Street. I haven't been following this super closely, so if this information's already been made available. Bear with me. I wanted to ask about the surfaces you're putting down on the outdoor parking and elsewhere. Can you put down pervious surfaces? I know you've got a whole drainage plan for the runoff, but are you putting down pervious surfaces materials?
We have not proposed pervious pavers, no. It's going to be all standard asphalt.
Speak up.
And is that something that is an option that could be pursued?
Do you have anything else?
My other question was, if I haven't even explored the website, but if I look there, can I see how much police and fire resources this is going to add?
There was this study done when the master plan approval of 2022. There is that study. I can point you to that if you shoot me an email. I can send you that link.
Okay, because I think I remember when the point went in, we had to buy a fire truck because we didn't have one tall enough. Who paid for it?
We have to buy a fire truck.
The developer paid for it.
The developer. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
We are not proposing any pervious pavers. It is asphalt for the parking lot. As Joe had alluded to, we are going to have to treat the pre-runoff, and there's no treatment going on right now, and so we are treating it. And typically, you'll use pervious pavers to lower the amount of drainage that you have to do. We're still able to accommodate what's out there, and we're really improving the site. For the majority of the site, it is asphalt pavement that does not have clean runoff, as I mentioned, from the vehicular cars, right? Gasoline, trash, whatnot gets into the system. So not only are we going to be treating it, but infiltrating and recharging it into the ground. But we do have asphalt pavement. Pervious pavers are great when you need to get under a certain ratio. Luckily, we have the treatment capacity on site. They tend to be a maintenance nightmare, and they always get ripped up by the plows. They work great in climates where you don't have snow removal. But up here, it's a constant battle with the plows ripping them up. So we are not proposing them here.
I would just make a comment about while Littleton, I think properly is, well, we're unfamiliar with parking garages. However, it does mitigate 2,000 cars of asphalt, which would otherwise be on the site. So, maybe we'll enjoy it as time goes by. Anyone else? Yes. Don, you've already spoken.
Don McIver, 43 Foster Street. I'm also on the Sustainability Committee, and we're quite interested in what you're doing in the residential area. We also have a major meeting going on this evening, so the people from that committee cannot make it here. But certainly we're working on a climate action plan, and certainly we're interested in emissions and reducing it. And we've recently built, or we've proposed to build, very energy efficient, climate responsible school. So I see a lot of areas here where you could introduce something like solar panels. I'm sort of disappointed you don't include those. I mean, certainly solar canopies are a great way of dealing with parking lots. And you have all that pavement. You have a garage that's high above high areas where you can have solar panels that would not affect other people. You have a 5-story building. A lot of places you could introduce something that's modern and efficient. And I would hope you would come back with some movement towards that area. A lot of important things have been raised, and I don't diminish it. I do have some additional concerns about public access. One of my main concerns is that this is well integrated into the community, and we have walkways that would lead to both the point and also towards the school. You mentioned a little bit about public transportation. I mean, this is an ideal place to have that, and I would like to see something in that direction, not only for the 2 public transportation units that have been identified, the LRTA and something else, but also there's the Acton cross-town system. So to integrate into the community to reduce traffic, because there will be congestion, and we really don't know how this is going to work with your road cuts to King Street and inside. A lot of funding has been raised by our state senator, Jamie Eldridge, and Representative Jim Arciero to help make this work. A lot of public funding here. We would like to see this work well, and I would like to see the integration of how public transportation works with this. A lot of people are going to be there, make it a lot easier. We're going to be very congested in the common area if you don't do that. But certainly, I think more energy efficiency. We're doing this in all of our town buildings. This is new construction. There's no limitation. You have high water, but you have a sewer system. You have a lot of capability here. So I would hope you would come back and show some energy efficiency and some ways of introducing solar. This is a good example of a building that has been built with that in mind. Our new Shaker Lane School is going to do that. This is new construction. It's one thing you have old construction, you have to fit things, but this is new construction and it needs to introduce some of that. Thank you.
Judy Reed, resident 3B Pamela Way. I like the new drawings. I think the building looks good. I know that it's down in that gully of the parking lot, so it's not going to be too high. Can I move in tomorrow? You're talking a balcony with good view, a swimming pool, a dog park, and plenty of elevators to get up to the 4th floor, 5th floor, whatever that is. I like it.
Thank you. Just walk on. Quick. Okay, thank you. So one of the things I was going to mention is public access. I hope this isn't exclusive. Once again, integrated in the community. You see places, I see you have bocce courts with great lawn games, things like that. But I hope that wouldn't be just exclusive to the residents, because you want people to mingle. You want part of the community. I look at communities like Gloucester that have bocce courts for the public on Stacy Boulevard. They also have tennis courts. I see you introduce a number of amenities, but they shouldn't be just exclusive for the people at this 5-story complex. And I realize there's concern of security and loitering and all that. So it's a challenge, but I want it so people can feel comfortable there. You have the retail area that I hope people will walk to and mingle with, have friends at the housing area, and just be well integrated within the community. That's it.
So Don, they had that discussed during the public amenities in the retail pieces there, but every apartment building I know, the pool is for the residents of the place there. Those are not public spaces, and I don't think it's appropriate to ask them to make the normally private spaces of the development open to the public.
Well,
given that they're making areas for the public in the other parts of the overall development. So I think you need to look at the plan as a whole and not just pick them and say that they didn't make the bocce court a public piece, because nowhere in Massachusetts, no apartment building I've ever seen, the private spaces are the private spaces for the residents.
Well, I can understand, Paul. That's a completely different level, and I agree.
But anyway, I think we need to make sure that we take context of any of our questions here in context of the overall development process here, and not try to apply pieces from one part to another part when they seem to not necessarily be the appropriate types of things for it.
We haven't yet seen, now Don, we're cutting you off. We haven't yet seen the town green, which may very well have amenities. And so that's the appropriate place.
I'm suggesting that.
Because you don't really mingle in someone's backyard, which is what these things would be. You just don't. I mean, I can come to your house and hang out, that's
Well-
not the way it works.
There's a lot of public money being spent here, and a lot of concessions here. You have things like Lawn D and the Seaport, you have the North End. you know-
Okay.
Yeah, there are places like
we
that.
have that. I'd like to end this hearing. This hearing is not closed. It will be continued to the 5th.
Yeah, Thursday, March 5th, this is just 7 p.m.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to continue this hearing to March 5th at 7 p.m.
This room.
in this room.
I'm sorry, are we not gonna be discussing the retail component?
There's another hearing.
This is a different hearing.
There's several hearings going on tonight,
Yeah.
so.
Great, thank you,
We'd like to cut this off so we can go to the.
fabulous.
Anyway, so let's talk about. Okay, let's vote, and then I want to talk about peer review. Mark, do we have a second?
I'll second that we continue to March 5th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, we can now begin the peer review process for this phase.
We have the estimate for the stormwater peer review, waiting for the to cover that amount. And then we're looking for an estimate for the traffic.
Okay.
It's now back from vacation. We'll
Okay,
be
and
able to-
that's stormwater.
So, right, and we're hoping to have time for back and forth between now and the 5th.
Okay. Okay, so next, it has past 7:15, so we have a continued public hearing for the 550 King Street Common. There are three aspects to this: to amend the definitive subdivision, which is a minor, lines on a sheet, to stormwater review and site plan. And we have the architect first, or Morgan?
Yeah, no, Morgan will go. I'm just trying to make sure that I can share my screen. Can you poke them? Oh.
You raise your hand.
I raised my hand so that she would see.
Thank you. We're good? Mr. Chair, members of the board, Morgan Pearson again with Lipoli Companies. We're moving on to phase one of the retail part of the project. And just as sort of a refresher, and we've talked about this a little bit tonight, started the master plan process dating back to 2021. I won't run us through all of the years since then. This particular phase for site plan review and the definitive subdivision was submitted back in November, and we've obviously been having many meetings since then, which we greatly appreciate, and thank the board again. Back in December when we first met, you may recall that I focused on this concept of a balance with the retail viability, coupled with the desire to meet the form-based code. Since then, we've focused more on listening and implementing a lot of what we've heard from the community, from this board, and that has iterated over several meetings, including tonight, which we're looking forward to sharing with the board and the community again. As we think about tonight, in our mind, it's this idea of moving forward and keeping in mind the bigger picture, which I'll get to towards the end after Dave speaks. The good news from our perspective is that, and we want to thank Green Engineering, UTIL, as well as the Littleton Fire Department, that through the peer review process, especially for traffic, stormwater, and fire, we've completed those processes, and we've agreed to all of the conditions for approval based on those conversations with the peer reviewers regarding traffic, stormwater, and Littleton Fire. Again, we thank everyone for that process. On the design side, obviously we're here tonight to share additional feedback. I said this at the last meeting and the meeting before, but we continue to push our team, our design team, PCA, Halverson, to do everything we can to be responsive to comments from this board, comments from the community, and Dave's going to go through that with you. But at the end, when I come back, I just want to ask that we take a step back, and I've been very appreciative of some of the sentiments we've heard tonight in terms of folks kind of taking the bigger picture view of what this project is. We've all been very focused, understandably, about a lot of the details, but it's worth reminding ourselves about the bigger picture, and I do want to speak to that a little bit later tonight. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Dave. He's going to show you, I think, how far we've come. He and the team and I have been really working on illustrating all the changes that have been made to improve these buildings, to be responsive to everything we've heard. So with that, I'll leave it to Dave, and I'll be back in a little bit.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Good to be with you again. So just going to take everybody back in time to November, just to remind everybody what we came in with originally. And these buildings along King Street, 1,200, 1,400, 1,500, we've spent our time really focused on these with you all and with the community to make sure that how this project integrates with the town feels right and feels very welcoming, and it feels active. So these buildings, when we came before you, were bigger than they are now. This is a diagram just reminding you when we came in, we had opaque glass facing the street. We had no entrances. We had, very little activity. And we've talked about the challenges and the balance along the way about that, and you've pushed us, and we've moved, and we continue to move and bring new ideas forth tonight. So the updated design, just to remind people, these buildings, we did quite a bit of gymnastics to adhere to many of the primary massing dimensions of the form-based code, to bring the overall heights down, to bring the datums of the roofs down, and to activate King Street in addition. So tonight we're coming back to show you that we've added even more entries into this project. On each corner of the building on King Street, we have entries into the retail tenants. All of those locations are activated with program along the street, which you'll see in some of the renderings in the site plan. And again, we've increased the glazing. We have no opaque glazing facing King Street anymore. Additionally, part of the feedback that we got along the way was to vary the massings, vary the roof types, and make sure that we had unique combinations per building, which we have done. So each building has its own expression. Not only does it have its own mass expression, it has its own detail and materiality, which we'll talk about in a moment. But it's important to see that as you go along the street, there is a unique character in each one of these buildings, and it looks that they've been done. They could have been done over time, which we know is the intent. Some comments that we heard. These are smaller details, but each building actually has different dormer styles. The 1,200 has smaller dormers using shingle as the material and no shutters on the windows. We've now changed building 1,400 back to have some larger ganged shed dormers, and those are have board and batten siding with more windows, no shutters in that. And then in building 1,500, we have a different kind of small gable dormer with clapboard on the side, and those windows all have shutters. So again, each building having unique details, different sizes, different articulations, different materials. Also, it's important to note that each building while you've seen many renderings and sometimes the detail doesn't come through on the screen, that each building is a different material, which in a rendering program typically blends together a bit, but in reality, each of these materials will read very differently. And again, bring that character through. So 1200 is going to be brick, 1400 will be primary clapboard, and 1500 will be shingle. We've also worked to have a variety of street expression all along these buildings, leveraging a lot of different tools here, projecting storefronts, canopies, awnings, and we've also added a new porch, which came out of the comments from the last meeting. We've added that to 1200. We'll have a view of that shortly. And so to take in all of these elements and the variety that exists, and then layer on the fact that these will be retailers who will bring their own expression through signage and accents, that there will be a really vibrant character along King Street day and night. So this is now the new updated proposed illustrative site plan. We do have Joe here from Halverson, who if there are any questions, I'm happy to speak to those. We know it's been a long night, so we're trying to keep it tight. We have a number of things that we've added since the last time that we were here, but I also just wanted to go to this next slide because this is helpful to see everything that we've added since the beginning. So just to refresh everybody, if you look at the top of the page, this is the original design along King Street of the buildings. We had some site walls, we had no program, and our pocket park that we had here was more of a peekaboo than a grand expression. And since we have done a ton of work to really change the entire character of King Street, starting on the left at 1200, let's not forget the town green is there. It is a monumental asset to this community. More to come, of course, in coming meetings on that. But 1200 has a entrance right on the corner facing the green, and also a new bike amenity on the corner for visitors. As you go to the other corner, we have the new porch that we've added that has seating, a new entry, landscaping there. Next over, we've raised the sidewalk. That was feedback that we got. We removed parking spaces in this location, both to help with cars backing out and to make sure we're avoiding congestion, but also to make a new place to be. We've added a new entry on that corner. So the outdoor seating, the entry, the activity continues. And then mid-block on 1400, we've added bike amenity and bench seating. So again, lots of things to do along the street. Another new entry added on 1400 in this location, and the pocket park, from something that was more contained is now, exploding out on the edges and wrapping around the corners of the buildings where there's entries and seating. 1500 again, another new entry here and a whole new plaza in front with outdoor seating in this location. So again, we believe that through all the feedback that we've gotten from the community, which we appreciate, and the commentary that we've had with the board, that we have moved the needle extremely far towards the goal of a really active King Street. So moving from here, just to show you a rendering of the new porch element that we're adding to the edge of 1200, the new outdoor seating right here, creating an accessible patio. And then just some of the other things that, I've mentioned before, but it's bears repeating. The varied facade materials per building, no opaque glazing. We have outdoor seating, we have entries, we have the variety of frontage types and expressions in each building. We have reconfigured the masses so that smaller scale elements. We've reduced building heights. So we think that this really creates the what everyone has been talking to us about. This stretch here, looking across the street from the Pocket Park, you'll see new entry at the edge of 1400, entries on both sides of these buildings here as the Pocket Park spills out. And again here, just flagging the reduced heights, the variety of dormer expressions. You can see the larger ones here on both sides of 1400. 1400 varying the materials, this being the clapboard building. We've added the entry, we've removed the opaque glazing, and really this park, as it spills out, is a dramatic change. Also, you can see the variety of shutter designs that we've added in. And then
Is that 550, King?
Yes.
You talked about across the street too.
That was the
mill building?
We're not talking about the mill buildings.
Okay.
Yes, this is just 550 King, Phase 1 retail. And so on this corner of 1500 here, just a new entrance here, a new plaza out front with seating, and again just flagging these, elevated the sidewalks as we've gone, both at this site entry point and the previous one between 1200 and 1400. You can see some more shutter designs here, and the shingle building, the shingle on this building. So again, we think that we have continued to push further and be responsive to all the comments that we've gotten to deliver upon the vision for King Street, and finding that balance that Morgan spoke to. The last thing here is, this came up as a question, I believe, Mr. Baker, you might have posed this last time about what seating is public, what seating is managed by a retailer. So the blue is all areas of outdoor seating that are fully 100% public use, including the entirety of the town green, which again we'll talk more about in the future, but everything along the pedestrian way, within the pocket park in the middle, these spaces along the street, these new spaces that we've added, and then the spaces in red that are adjacent to those entries with the cafe seating, those would be managed by the retailer. So an abundance of public options everywhere on the site, and more to come in the green. So I'm going to flip it back to Morgan to close us up.
Let me go back. Thank you. Can I go back, Dave? Yeah. Nope, not that way. Dave, how do I go back? Should go up. Oh, I don't know how to use the computer apparently. That's how it is. Thanks, Dave. Thank you so much. I mean, I hope people can appreciate the level of work, the number of changes we've made. We will share this presentation, and I guess I would just ask or encourage everyone here who is passionate about this project and the town and wants to understand this to please go through this. I mean, Dave did a great job of explaining all of those different pieces, but I just encourage people to read it closely, understand it, look at the previous presentations. I think we have come a long way, and I think what I would just point out, and I've said this before, is our first presentation we believed in strongly as well. It also came from a place of what will make the retail the most successful. We believe in this as well. We just know the challenge for us to bring in retailers is just going to be a little bit more difficult. But we have accepted that challenge in order to work with the community and the board to try to accommodate a lot of the changes and the desires that the community has. And those are understandable. And I think we're up for the challenge, but it is going to be that because of the reasons I think you've heard from our retail expert at the last meeting. So I say that just because, again, Dave does a great job of showing all these changes, but each of these changes were at times excruciating because it meant, okay, well, how are we going to talk to a retailer who has this perfect box they want to put into this thing, but now we're asking them to change their box where they don't have it anywhere else. Maybe if they have 2 stores, maybe they have 200 stores. Maybe it's their first store. So those are all things that we think about, and we don't make the changes lightly. The form-based code is not one thing. It is possibly 1,000 different things. And we are adhering to so many of them. And that is something that is not reflected because we focus on the things where we're asking for some relief. But this team, Dave and his team and our Halverson team, have bent over backwards these past few months to work their best to adhere to some of these form-based codes. So I just encourage people to recognize that. We started back in 2021, as I've said before, and I just also would like this group and those listening to acknowledge that visions evolve through input. And in 2021, we presented a vision, and that evolved through input from this board, from this community, from our design teams, from our experts on retail and housing. And then it was voted on in 2022, and then again in 2024. I've shown this slide before. But I know there's some folks who are catching up to this project or just coming back to it maybe after some time. This is what was approved in 2024. This is the phase we're talking about tonight. This is the exact layout that was approved in 2024. You'll see there's D, E, G, H, and F there. Those are 1,100, 1,200, 1,300, and 1,400 now. That's what it is right there. That's what was approved 2-3 years ago. This is what we're showing tonight. Again, we're going to put this online. So the last thing I want to talk about is as I mentioned before, this idea of the big picture. And I won't go through these painstakingly because a lot of them have already been brought up tonight. But we took a big step in submitting for the residential project, 318 units, as you've all heard. We talked about the importance of housing in both this community, but also the state and beyond. Tax base also has been touched on and shouldn't be minimized. And happy to speak about that as well. We've also talked about, and again, I appreciate it took some of my thunder, but this idea of rebuilding the employment base. When IBM left many, many years ago, they took obviously those full 500,000 square feet of office space with employees. We're working actively to put shovels in the ground so we can bring employment back to this site and to the town. This phase of our retail project alone, we estimate will bring 200, 250 construction jobs. And then once it's built, because there'll be restaurants there, there'll be stores, we're estimating somewhere around 400 to 500 full-time employees just in the retail piece alone that are working here, that are taking the shuttle, that are taking the train, that are biking, that are driving. The other thing we've heard too, and I just, again, this idea of taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture, is that the goal here is that the parking lot will no longer be the front door of Littleton, this sea of parking that it once was. Instead, it's going to be some of the things that you saw tonight, things like this. Here's a look at the town green, again, that has been augmented or adjusted significantly based on feedback. And just as a reminder, we're coming before this board later with a full town green plan. But as a preview, the town green is roughly 35,000 square feet. And to give you a sense, I think on 3rd Ave in Burlington, it's like 12,000 square feet. If you've ever been to Tuscan Village up in Salem, New Hampshire, it's bigger than that Tuscan Village green up there. So it's substantial, and Littleton, if they choose, will have a lot of bragging rights to have such a large town green that is also being integrated thoughtfully with Halverson, with Joe, who's here, who lives in the community, with the current common area. So we're excited to show that later, but this image is just a reminder of that, both of the changes we're making, have made, and also what's to come. And it's no longer a parking lot. The other thing I would just add, going back to my list here, is just this idea that it's not going to be a large-scale warehouse or distribution center. And we don't have to rehash that, but that was certainly something that was an option here many moons ago. And this is great that that's not happening. Extending the vibrancy to downtown, I don't want to minimize that, but there's other businesses downtown now that will benefit from the traffic that we bring to both traffic, vehicular, bike, pedestrian, to this area. And we've talked extensively during this process about the off-site improvements, both pedestrian and vehicular. And again, Mr. Sanders spoke about the sewer treatment, wastewater treatment plant, which was a good reminder. So that is how we motivate every week to make these changes, to get excited about what can happen here. And so again, I just want to thank you all for your time in this special meeting. And as a refresher, we have some of these incredible photos that we really hope we're able to build with your approval. Thank you.
We're going to go through the board. One of the outstanding issues from last meeting was the fire truck access. We have a very detailed report. Did someone look at the site plan and tell us about what we're doing for that? It didn't seem like it changed very much.
Yeah, Alex will hold the plan and you can speak to it. Hold on, I'm not sharing anymore.
While Dave's getting that pulled up, Alex Seller with TEC, civil engineer for the project. So as you know from the last meeting, last hearing, we've coordinated with the fire department and their peer reviewer, Code Red. And if I can go to the screen. So the major change for the project that just because we hadn't had that initial review with the fire department, we did look at it, we did coordinate it, so that's why you didn't see a lot of changes for the radius, but in fact we widened some turn radiuses on this driveway, and on this side you can see this was a little bit more flared out than this side, so that's a minor change that was accommodated. But the biggest change was life safety access from either side of this pedestrian corridor. You can see that there's no longer those permanent tree beds in that area, and all those are removable features now. And we also widened the access to turn a ladder truck onto that raised area on either side. So we've widened that access. You can see that raised crosswalk is actually quite a bit wider than the previous version. So those were the major changes from the result of the fire department review and Code Red review.
Thank you. And all the reviewers are satisfied with these changes at this point?
Yes, sir.
Were there any further peer review outstanding items?
There were several suggested conditions of approval, the latest just from this afternoon from the traffic peer review.
Okay.
And we've agreed to all of them just for what it's worth.
No disagreement on any of the
Okay, board. Any further questions, comments?
I think it looks great. I think they put more, I like the idea of more doorways on King Street. Makes it look, I think the buildings looked great before. I think they're looking better now. I like the different uses of material there, so it breaks it up. We're still not going to have parking over there, so it's a nice compromise to try to make that part of King Street look more accessible. I think they did a good job listening.
Bartlett?
Well, I second that. I like the doors, entrances on the corners of the buildings, because that sort of makes the turn from the King Street onto those driveways to go in. I think that's good.
Daryl?
Yeah, I too like the updated design and the work that's been put into as I say, the whole project there. It's not, I know it's got different phases, but looking at it as a whole and that it all integrates well together, I think is good. And I like what I saw tonight.
Since most of the work has been done along King Street, I'll just make a couple comments. Thank you for my porch. And I really like the idea of elevating the sidewalk on the upper part of the thing, to separating it from the street. I think that will go a long way toward making it a more pleasant experience. So those are our comments. Yes, George.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity here tonight to speak on this project. First and foremost, I am a person that like to do things right. I think we have an obligation as a town and this board to do right by the town people and do right by the developer. I want to say to the developer. This team that you have here, they have did a superb job, in my opinion, with regards to the comments that's been given to them. They've acted upon them. They've done things that the board has asked, and also the vision that the developer had. He made changes. The letter that I sent to you on February the 4th, I sent that letter to the developer as well, because I think that effective communication is 50% to the solution of any problem. As you well know, I pointed out things in there that I thought should be better, especially those buildings with the back. He changed that. Now we got a front showing to King Street now. And the doors that's been put in. I am very pleased that my communication did not fall on deaf ears with that developer. And I want to thank this team here tonight for the effort that you put forth in carrying out what we in Littleton saw a need to be adjusted. You adjusted. And I thank you for that. And as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Chairman, and the members of this board, you should give this developer the nod on that first phase at 550 King Street. I think it's well deserving. I think they've done what you've asked them to do and what we as citizens have asked them to change the look of what King Street should look like. I think it's important to know that he's spent a lot of money in this town and hasn't did anything for himself at 550. We know that once he gets going, whatever needs to be done, that you're going to ask them with the other phase or whatever, they're going to do the same thing that they done for phase one. They're going to try to adjust and please because he wants a good pull with the citizen here in the town of Littleton. He told that to me himself. And he's also going to come on my TV show. And he's going to tell the town about the future project at 550 up there to let the people know that he cares and he wants to do what's right. This is important to him, very important to him. And I appreciate him. And I appreciate you as his team. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
George, that was less than 4 minutes. Good.
You got it. Because I had it.
Yes, Mark.
Mark Rambacher, 205 Hartwell. I wanted to thank you guys. The presentation from phase 1 to phase 2 was a huge change and very well done. And phase 3 is even better. I'm really pleased with this. My one question is, I know the state has said we can't put parking along 110. There's been talk about whether we should take over the road and allow us to do that. The way it looks on phase 3, the renderings, it doesn't look like even if we took over 110, we could do it. You're too close. So I'm just wondering if we still want a long-term plan, or we should be doing that, or not taking over the road, but if in the long term we think parking would be beneficial there and we're continuing to pursue it, then maybe you need to change your plan slightly, or we just are saying, no, it's never worth putting parking there, we're going to give that up.
So Mark, Jim, are you still here?
I know it's a process to go through.
Yeah,
I know it takes a
he's
long
sort of
time.
initiated the process with the state, but we would have to, as a town, vote to take care and control
Right,
of those.
I understand all of that, but what and I understand it would be a long process, and we may wanting to do it regardless what's going on with parking there or not. My question is, the design, it looks like the buildings are so close to King Street. If we decided to put parking there, there is no.
I think that's fair.
So-
However, there's the next phase of retail.
So the question is more, should we move those buildings back from King Street 12 feet or whatever so that we could put parking there in the future? Or we're deciding it's a lost cause?
We just wanted to show, we did do a diagram, that it is possible to put the parking.
You're rendering it, the.
It's, it's not coming up on the screen, it's on the.
Yeah, Mark, maybe look at that. Yeah,
If you wanna look at this, but,
Yeah,
you know.
but the pictures you showed of the buildings, they
Right.
showed it right on top of the sidewalk.
So this is those buildings, and we have overlaid, and again, because of the nature of this display, it's clear
Yep.
over here.
Okay.
There's a way, now, you're obviously moving some curves, you're probably
Yeah, I
changing
understand there's a
grass,
lot of work that would require.
but we have left room so it's possible.
Okay. Your pictures, your renderings show it really close though, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's confusing.
It's fair, and I mean, I would just tell you, we have done the study, we are accommodating for the space should that happen. It will change the character, but it doesn't change like where we've integrated.
I'm not advocating for or against it, I'm just saying if we are thinking we would want to do it in the future, your pictures that show the buildings, the fake buildings, show them really close, and it doesn't make it look possible. That's all. Thank you.
Jim, do you want to speak to this briefly about the process of taking over the roads from the state?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we're gonna have our initial meeting with the Department of Transportation on next Wednesday, where we will get the determination on the process, and looking for a timeline to report back to the planning board and the select board and also, we need to make sure the determination of DOT's willingness that they're interested in doing this. There's other factors we also have to take into consideration, the financial implications it would have on the town for care, custody, and control of that. And we will be exploring similar situations in other communities. And I believe West Acton has been recently referenced that I will be talking to the administration there and with Steve Yonley to be discussing with the DPW team in Acton also.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes.
Hi, Margot Bloomstein. I live at 7 Wilson Lane.
Thank you very much for so many of the changes that we've seen tonight, and I think that we've continued to see over time. It's good to see progress. I think we sometimes treat progress like this sort of like asymptotic thing that we're reaching toward this goal and never actually trying to meet it, and I think we can go further to actually meet it. So I know that we've been frustrated. I think the board has heard frustration from many people in town. I know you've heard our frustration about seeing oversized buildings like this mall of large national retailers that seems to scorn our form-based code. So I wanted to remind us of that and kind of bring us back to why we're here. And I just wanted to open with, I'll read this quote. We wanted to integrate with the commons because Littleton created a master plan with some ideas of various small shops and small entrepreneurs that are creating a connection with the common, a walkable kind of thing. And I think that sounds great. That isn't what we've seen over like the past month, where we were pushing to say, why aren't these buildings facing the common? And I will also say, those are not my words.
That's what Sal Lupoli said to us at the August 11th, 2021 joint meeting of the Select Board and Planning Board. And then a Littleton resident, Shannon McNulty of 29 Ernie's Drive, she asked him, you know, how can you be certain that this won't be just another commercial site that remains vacant? And he doubled down. He said, we're going to focus on small businesses and helping them grow. Rick Freiberg, TEC's CEO and president, I believe, also echoed that. He said, we view really activating King Street. We view this area as a place where there's service type amenities, like a doctor's office, a place to get ice cream, have coffee, maybe civic uses. And you'll see some really New England style architecture, because what we're trying to do is borrow from the form-based code that was put in place, that Littleton put in place. We want to capitalize on that character, the surrounding neighborhood, and some of the older style architecture. The goal is to activate King Street. Again, that's what he told us in August of 2021, so that there's a natural connection to the common, because we view that as the face of the site, the face of the property, and the heart of the village. He also said that it's important to identify that existing character that's on the site today. That's the Tuttle House and the surrounding space around it, a beautiful park. The Tuttle House is a nice property, and in our mind, we look at that and say it's an asset that serves us well as a sort of interface with the town common, and our plan is to preserve that space the way it is, not move it for some kind of artificially created green. And then after they spoke, we also heard the words, it's a great place to start working on revitalizing our common using our form-based code. Mark, you had said that, and thank you. We think that that's great, and we haven't seen that over the past few months of meetings and deliverables. Now, when we talk about the form-based code, as you know, I'll just share it for other folks that are here and maybe newer to it. We developed that, Littleton developed that working with a paid consultant over 18 months, and we passed that with overwhelming support of our town, the fire chief, planning board, et cetera, at our 2020 town meeting. It was ratified by law, reviewed by the Attorney General. And I keep going back to that, our form-based code, because it's not just a recommendation or a wish list, but it's a bylaw of the town that the town worked hard to develop, working with Util, one of the reviewers on this plan. And it focuses on creating a walkable, mixed-use, compact common area with design standards for building height, placement, and architectural features that create a historically appropriate human-scale town center. In putting that together, in developing that code, we are essentially codifying or putting into law, here are the things that help us envision the future for Littleton. These are our priorities, really. And that bylaw specifies buildings of no more than a certain size, layout, with facades that face King Street. And then furthermore, in the June 2024 amended master plan, the special permit there, it says that all provisions of the dimensional requirements and design standards will remain applicable. And I keep saying that this is a law because as a code, as a bylaw, it is not simply a guideline to which we should try to aim close to and hope we'll get there, kind of shoot for the moon and land in the stars. We need to hit that because that is our law that is legally binding and codifies the priorities of the people of Littleton. Deviation from that requires a waiver, and I know you've submitted that application. That's supposed to be a temporary exception due to conditions that the board recognizes. And remedying those conditions through a waiver needs to be mutually beneficial to the contractor that is applying for it and the municipality in which they seek to do business. And I think if you're granting a waiver, it needs to be beneficial to us too. Because with the form-based code, the people of Littleton decided, we put into words, we put into our law, not just a wish list, but what is beneficial to us to extend our common, not have some kind of like alterna common created with the green as a public space. We keep talking about that as this great public space, but we have a public space with a long, authentic history, because it's been there a couple centuries, that's still used today for rallies and for when we do like lighting up for Christmas and lighting the Hanukkah menorah and all. We have that kind of common space, and we want to extend it with human scale growth that fits with our history, not kind of ignores it, but goes back to that New England style architecture, the form-based code, the character of that, the older style architecture that incorporates that architecture, like Mr. Freiberg said. And when we said we wanted pedestrian-friendly development that addresses residential needs and affordable housing and extends the common, we're trying to honor that space that we have, not create this other closed-in enclave. And I know you had said, you know, you never see apartment complexes as a private space that allow the public to use their amenities, but there will be amenities here for the public. I saw a little bit of kind of common public seating area on King Street, but it's mostly kind of back in that enclave, or on the green, I guess. Still want to see that there are public restrooms as a baseline public amenity for the public to use. We want to make sure that we are extending the common space that has served us literally for centuries as a town common. Because waivers to the code undermine the benefits that Littleton citizens prioritized when we put that together. And Lipoli has laid out why you need the waivers, and I see what's in it for them. Knowing that the planning board operates on our behalf as citizens and looks out for Littleton's best interest, I want to know that if we are giving up elements of our form-based code, what's in it for us? Like, I'm not seeing like the public bocce courts or public swimming pool, or I don't know if like the dog park was public as well, or public restrooms in this new kind of mini mall that's been created with its alternative green. Because if you're asking us to trade our code and our common for this alternative common and towering buildings and generic mall architecture that is frankly everywhere and could be anywhere, I'm happy to see features that do feel more of us now, so thank you for that. But I do ask the planning board to reject any waivers, and please hold Lipoli to our form-based code. Thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
Mike Selden, 11 Lohan Street. I never, having been present at the birth of form-based code in town and helped shepherd it through the process, I never viewed it as, shall we say, a cure to all of Littleton's aspirations. It is quite flexible. It's intended to be. And matter of fact, the elements are very well defined, as Utile masterfully demonstrated, and to the extent that they could, the development team has responded. Now, not all of us may like the result. However, it comes as close, unless we can come up with a reason why and how such changes would be made to make it more conforming. However, since I live so close to the site, maybe I have a somewhat different view. Unfortunately, I'd like to have your view. I'd like to have even George's view. Because as far as I'm concerned, the real problem in the common at this point is that this development is the least of your worries. It's the 2 gasoline stations. Nothing against wrong retail entrepreneuring, really. This is not an attack on the owners or the folks who do that. But you have 2 gasoline stations sitting there, along with some other stuff that basically has not changed in the 20 years that I've been here and shows no sign of it yet. And until it does, form-based code will have no effect whatsoever. But I can assure you that if which I would say the sweep of King Street at its intersection with Great Road was available to, shall we say, to be recreated in a different form, form-based code would play a very significant role and would have affected, perhaps, this development, but it didn't. So when we say integrate it into the rest of the town, or we want to have this project integrated into the rest of the common, to me, the common still remains gasoline station, liquor store, very small, bizarre traffic pattern. It is unfinished business, the common. What they're doing, keep in mind they have a captive market. It's the 350, the folks who are going to occupy the rentals. And anyone else who wants to shop in the area. Anyone else who wants to shop. I'd like to point out that retail area with those 3 units. We could argue over this appropriate size, which brings me to the unanswered question is, how did the size of those units come to be what they are? Is it based on a real financial analysis on the realities of what Littleton really is? Or is it wishful thinking on the part of planners? I don't know. All I can tell you is the information I've been trying to get paints a somewhat different picture. But I don't get paid to do this, you do. So I'd like to ask, you mentioned this on a case, you mentioned it here in passing, and to me this is more significant perhaps than form-based code, whether you're using it the right way or not. And that is, do you have the evidence that suggests why those 3 buildings at those particular sizes? Because it seems to be driven by, okay, we want to have a retail center here because. And if you can do it without divulging the secret sauce of the business model by which you operate, which, by the way, is not easy to operate. You're an investment house. You have stockholders who want to be, shall we pay at the end of the month or the end of the year. So there's a generation of capital here, totally appreciated. So it would be very helpful if the leader of the team here could at least provide some background to understand, not so much that I'm against the 3 buildings or that everyone in town is against the 3 buildings. It's the expectation that at the moment remains somewhat obscure of what those 3 buildings really represent in terms of retail success and utility. If those buildings are made smaller, that opens up moving further away perhaps from King Street, for example. Who knows, you may have done that calculation, said if we do that, the kind of retail folks we want in here won't come. We have to settle for something else. High risk, can't afford to do. I mean, I'm making this up. I have no idea what went into this. So I would appreciate, and I don't know if there's anybody else who would, the size that you've got here is interesting from my point of view, given what my peculiar picture is of where Littleton fits into the retail market, which to me includes not just Littleton, it includes every town around us with which we integrate with. So any information you can share that isn't generalities like, well, I'd really like to understand the size and what you have in mind.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to respond?
It's not critical.
Sure. No, thank you. I appreciate that. I want to respond to that, but I have to just respectfully quibble with one thing, which is that we are an investment firm with stockholders. We are very proudly a family business. We have one of the family members here, which is pretty unique, I think, in this business, a company of our size, just being an actual family that lives very close by. So I'm going to speak to a bunch of things that you asked about, and then I also want our design team, Dave Snell, to speak on it as well, because his company does a lot of things very well, but one of the things they do the best is retail. I think if we take away 550 King Street for a second and just talk about retail, it is a very formulaic business where they want boxes. The retailer is the end user. It's different than when we think about multifamily, but they want a specific box they can fit their model into. And if you may remember, and I'm not sure if you were at the meeting, but we brought in our retail expert who all he does is live and breathe and own retail centers around the country and regionally. But one of the things he spoke to is these groups, whether you're a dry cleaner that's a local group or even sometimes a liquor store or you're Lululemon, you have a formula which is really a defined box. We want the depth to be this much, we want the width to be this, we want visibility from the street, we want foot traffic, we want parking. All of these things have to check boxes. And if you don't check them, good luck. You will go somewhere else. We have all the options in the world. When we think about a clean slate, you look maybe at the point, and I don't want to beat on the point, but you go to a very formulaic strip with parking in front, and you enter in and out, and that works and you get to attract a lot of different tenants. Because of this board, because of this community, we were asked to approach it from a form-based code. So we had to sort of adapt that formula into these shapes and these size buildings that could, in a way, be responsive to that formulaic requirement from the different retailers. In addition, we introduced this pedestrian path that is reminiscent and somewhat inspired by Patriot Place. Also, we happen to be in downtown Salem today. There's other examples where there's a pedestrian path and there's retail on every side. And how do we make that successful? The last piece, and then Dave, please correct me as you like, is this idea of future tenants, which is not all of these tenants are going to survive forever, as we all know. We've all seen tenants turn over. So then the question is, do you sit with an empty space, or are you attractive enough? Have you designed, we'll call it a mousetrap, that is good enough that the next person, you can fill that space quickly and keep the retail surviving? Because we've all seen those strip centers or those other places where one retail dies and the other, and it just death spirals and there's no coming back, and you have to either start over or it's dead. We're not in that business, as you can imagine. That's not the aim of this. So those are all the factors that informed us on creating these different boxes, and also informed where windows go, informed where doors go, and the height of the ceilings. So that, I hope, is somewhat informative. But Dave, please, maybe you can speak better than I.
No, that's good. I mean, I think the other thing is, of course, Jeremy spoke to this, but I think some of your question is sometimes like, is the market big enough? Is this going to succeed? And there has been a ton of research that I think our team has done and have already talked to many tenants about, this site and the desirability of it. So I just want to say, like, we do believe that the retailers, not just national people, but and you heard Jeremy talk about this previously, we do want this to be a mix of local and regional and national people. And what's important when you design centers like this is, as Morgan mentioned, yes, there are dimensional requirements. There's general depths that under which you can't make it work. And the depth is, 70 feet is usually, a key number in retail. And, so most retailers, when we do these centers, they want to be 70, 80, 90, 100 feet. So when we do large master plans, a lot of our buildings are much bigger. These are by far the smallest multi-tenant buildings that I've worked on across our portfolio. And the long-term viability has a lot to do with what Morgan said. Our ability to re-tenant this in the future in different configurations internal to these buildings is key. The ability to take a larger chunk of space and chop it up to be one tenant, or two, or three, or four. What that allows for is that long-term vitality. So that, let's say we have a big user that goes out of business, and no other big users are in town, we can subdivide that space into two and still make it work. And so that is a big part of making sure that this is vibrant, not just today, but tomorrow. And, I can tell you, we've done many successful retail centers. We've done things like The Point, but we've also done these mixed use integrated things, and you know, we've learned over time that flexibility and those dimensions are key to really creating a healthy community here. And so, you know, the last thing I'll just leave you with is that, you know, I know we talk about boxes, and there are many different kinds of retailers that we can imagine being here and that we have talked to. We need to make sure that we are adaptable and flexible and can work with their requirements. But as Morgan said, you know, even people doing their first stores, I mean, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs trying to find their first location. And even that is extremely difficult for people to find space that's adequate, space that is actually something they can do their thing in, because a lot of what's out there is not really suitable. It's not set up for this. So, you know, I tour spaces with, you know, retailers a lot, and there's just a lot of challenges with everything. When you have products like this that's set up by people who know what they're doing, that is set up with the functionality, the infrastructure, the electrical, the HVAC, all the things that you need, you know, you can attract a wide variety of people. And the last, I keep on saying the last, but there's one more part of this, which is, you know, the facades and the articulation that you are all aspiring to and that we have layered onto these buildings. That does not come without considerable expense on the developer's part. I've worked on many projects in which the retailer brings their prototype language and slaps it on there. We're not allowing that here. We've, you know, set up a scenario where they can do their signage, but we are articulating this language. So you're not going to see, you know, Sephora black and white stripe, you know, wild thing coming in here. And that's intentional. And you don't see things like this because you don't have towns in a process like this. There is a lot that's going into this that is unique. And we've said that word before, and it, you know, can sometimes be assumed like we're just throwing it out there, but it is true. You don't see something like this. It's going to be special. And it's not, I hate it when people say mall. I don't think that this will ever feel like that. What you see in these renderings is what we're aspiring towards. It is walkable, it is welcoming, it is all kinds of retailers, services, food, all these different uses. And to get that mix together, to get that density of people, you need this flexibility, you need these footprints, and you need these sizes. And we're hoping that all the compromises that we made, you know, while Morgan said it'll be a little bit more challenging, you know, we're committed. We're on, you know, we're up to it, and we're going to make it happen.
Thank you. Okay, we're approaching a 3-hour meeting. So let's, please, we want everyone to speak, but not necessarily reiterate what has been said before. Anyway, go ahead.
So, at the last meeting, Kim Ahern, 40 Foster Street. So at the last meeting, we talked quite a bit about West Acton Village and comparing this project to it. Well, I happen to be the landscape architect for that, and I worked with the architect a lot. And I just wanted people to see, this is really old school. I did this in 2009, so bear with me. But I wanted you to see the difference in the scale of the building and of the streetscape. This is West Acton Village, and I outlined in black the different buildings along there. These are the buildings that are going to go on King Street. They're both at 1 inch equals 20. The amount of retail and office space here is 50,000 square feet. So a lot of square footage, but the way it's configured is much different than what we're going to have on King Street. I think they've done a lot of good and interesting changes, but I think they could push it a little farther and bring it more in line with what is working really well in West Acton, where the buildings aren't all so evenly inside, even in size. They could be broken up a bit more, like Jesse Yang mentioned, your peer reviewer last week. And I think the success of this would be so much better if it was just pushed a little farther in the design. I appreciate all the work that the developer and the team has done, but I think there's one more level that the board could ask them to go through.
Can you look at that? Have you noticed that the buildings that are going on King Street are 3 times as big, the area that they're going on? That's the issue with the form-based code. That is a huge property, and you can't put tiny little buildings. No one will go in those.
They just go in them.
You have an ice cream shop.
One other comment. Could you point out which buildings were existing? Because several of those buildings were existing.
Right, so this is the church at
Yes.
the end. And it's
Which is now like a community center.
It's an after-school Danny's Place, it's called. Then here, this was existing. This is the Acton Seafood. And there's a yoga studio up and upstairs and downstairs. This is the ice cream store that was here. This is an office building. So the developer actually has an office on site. He's the one that still brings in the different, works with the different companies, stores and so forth. So there, he assures there's a good mix. It's not all banks or whatever. This gift shop here, I believe this is the new building. There's a new building behind here, and this Acton Coffee House is the new building.
So that what they're showing is like a performing arts center or something. It's actually the office building.
They were going to have this, but the town said it was too big. So that was
what isn't shown there is there's a large office building back there. I guess my point is that
yes,
we have an existing condition of a 2,000 car parking lot. We do not have an existing condition of a beautiful old church, several old structures, and I appreciate this, but it's just not apples to apples.
I think you can use that as a model, though. It doesn't have to be all size, all so evenly spaced, so evenly done in size. It's a design method, or you could push the design further. I think you're an architect, you know.
I am.
You could push it through.
But I also know there's imperatives. I think they've been very eloquent about their imperatives of getting tenants, because the tenants that are there, there's an ice cream shop, there's a little, there's a coffee shop. I mean, there's the brewery, but there's, it's lovely. I love the work there. It's just not comparable to this site.
I respectfully disagree that you can use some of the what's right. I'm not saying
I may not disagree with you either, but we have a development proposal where they're putting their money to build something that they want to be successful.
But I think it's the board's. I think your job is, in a way, to push the developers to do even better than what they might be proposing and what the townspeople are asking. Right?
The job is also to make sure that it's viable, that you don't have empty buildings.
Well, I think that would be fine. I think you'll still have buildings that can work, but just in a bit of a different configuration.
I don't think you can find 1 million Starbucks and 1 million little coffee shops or juice places that are going to fill those
It's
buildings.
going to take more than a coffee shop.
You
to
need big
activate
tenants. You need big restaurants and things like that.
Yep,
The point,
that's fine.
Tavern on the Square couldn't fit it over there. Restaurants like that, it's just not big enough. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's actually, I'm glad to know that you did West Acton, because it's a very nice project. Any Anything else? Rob?
Rob Reynolds, 25 Juniper Road. I think this was the best constructive meeting, so kudos to you, kudos to you, and quite frankly, kudos to the public. I think I've left previous meetings pretty frustrated, not feeling that way tonight. I feel there's been good communication, et cetera. I'd like to go to one. This is the next one. I agree with the apples to apples. I wish, but I don't think it's viable.
Yeah.
But I wish.
Yes.
Two, Mark Rombacher's question. I was satisfied with the answer. I thought you answered very directly. I appreciate that direct answer that the parking on King Street could happen. The question that I find myself wanting to know, I thought maybe I should ask it privately, but I'd rather find out. Can you wait? Because you've presented us with, this is your first retail, phase. So can you wait for what I believe I'm hearing of 2 years, possibly more for, DOT transition? I know the situation you're dealing with regard to, we need to not just activate King Street, we need to activate this retail base. Town needs the money, we need the jobs, we need the housing, we need all of it. And we need it now, soon as you can get on with it. And so my question is it viable? Because if it's not viable, I think that was the essence of Mark's question. Let's not pursue things that are contrary to what seemingly fits as a partnership. So thank you.
So unfortunately, Mark had to leave for other things here, but I've been talking to him about the timelines the town is already facing for even the minor changes they're trying to get accomplished on Great Road. The simple thing of making it so that it's not a 50-mile-an-hour zone and a 45-mile-an-hour zone, and maybe even extending the 25-mile-an-hour zone has been 5+ years in the works, and the signs still haven't changed. So I don't think, from my perspective as a regulatory board, trying to impose something that's got such an unknown deadline or timeline is something that I'm not comfortable talking, about, because we could be waiting 5 years before the state decides that, yes, we'll consider giving up the road to you. And then, as the town administrator said, we still then have to be prepared to pick up the cost of maintaining all of that road that gets turned over to us, of which it's a major highway. It's a major thoroughway on it. So given all of those unknowns, I'm not comfortable asking somebody to wait it out, because they could be waiting forever. And we are still left with nothing but 2 jumbo parking lots on King Street. And I can't see us waiting for something and watching a parking lot still sit there.
So for the record, I agree, and I appreciate, again, that's part of where I think this meeting, you're listening and we're getting a collective set of responses. Some of us may not like what those responses are, but we're moving towards, I hope, closure.
Tell you my opinion and where I'm sitting at relative to
But
that.
what I would say is that there is further retail. I mean, this is half of what the projected further retail is. And so any work done toward this care and control, and it's been pointed out to me that the town may not want to even take up the expense of it, after all this work. So yes. Anything else? Yes. Yes.
I'm Kathy Christophic.
You'll have to bend that down a little bit.
Kathy Christophic, 190 Hartwell Avenue. I think about the 18 months that we put into form-based code. Form-based code covers a certain area, okay? So it covers this development, but it also covers the rest of the common. When we grant waivers to form-based code for one developer, what does that say to other potential people who want to come along and develop in this area, in this zone, okay? That's my concern, that we're going to have, we made these codes and these strictures for the benefit of the townspeople, okay? And this is what we want. This is what we want. And for the developer to come in with this plan that absolutely blows it out of the water and then say, gosh, we'll make some, you know, adjustments to it is kind of insulting, really. It really is. I think, you know, you came in 2021 with a plan that said, this is going to be mostly residential with auxiliary retail. And now all of a sudden it's not. It's this huge retail development. And that's not Littleton. You're making a little, you know, alcove of retail, of giant retail. And that's not what you sold us in 2021 and 2022. And that insults me, because you should start with the law as it's made, okay? And not say, we're gonna do it this way, and then come back and you know, say, no, we're gonna do it with these huge buildings, right? And, oh, when you make the adjustments, we're supposed to be grateful? I would ask you not to grant these exceptions for this developer, because then we've got the, you know, the rest of the common to consider. Thank you.
There was one more, yeah.
Erica Podgorny, 6 Fox Lane. I first started coming to the meetings because I was really upset when I saw the backs of buildings facing King Street and what looked like 3 big warehouses sitting on King Street. I actually think you've done a really great job with the changes. I feel like we've been listened to. When I see shingles on buildings, that says New England to me. I've grown up here. When I see all the different roof lines, I think Cape Cod, rambling Cape Cod that's been built onto generation after generation, right? That's what I was looking for. And I think that's what our form-based code was meant to look like. And I do think we have to be a little bit flexible, because this is a different space than most of what our common is. Most of the common, I think, can fit into exactly what our form-based code is, because we're talking about 1 row of buildings that is on King Street, that is facing the street, that is small buildings. I do think this is the exception. I like that. I think it's going to be walkable. I think it's going to be more walkable than anything else is currently in the common. We don't generally walk in the common. And I can't wait to go to a restaurant and then walk to a store and maybe walk and get an ice cream and whatever. I think that will be great. I do hope that you're hearing that we want local stores. I don't need another tavern in the square. I don't need, we don't need the big restaurant chains and the big retail chains. We'd really like some small stores. We'd really like some local restaurants. I think that would go a long way into really endearing yourself to this community. But I thank you for the changes you've made.
That being said, thank you for all the comments tonight. Daryl, you wanted to...
Yeah, so I'd like to continue this hearing until our meeting of March 5th.
At what time?
At what time?
So we could do this rather early, 6:35, 6:40.
Okay.
Okay, and with the moving more towards having finalized documents, finalized memorandum of agreements or any other, terms and conditions that we would need to be considering at that meeting.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
I'll second that. I'll make a motion that we have discussion between, continue it, but have the discussion between the Foley and town council that we work on finalize conditions of approval. Actually, vote on hopefully next week, next month.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to thank everyone, all the professionals here, all the citizens here, and
Let's get it done.
we're done.